the dungeon appeared completely out of nowhere. The hero was thinking about why a dungeon suddenly appeared in modern Japan, that it was very similar to what he had seen in the other world. He didn't like it because he had seen this dungeon before. A fortnight ago, during the summer holidays before 9th grade, he fell into a hole that appeared under his feet. The king addressed him, calling him the brave warrior Furiari Rigi. He said they had summoned him to their world to save him from extinction. Upon coming to his senses, the hero realized that he had entered another world. The king asked him to defeat the demon lord and save their world. The hero surprisingly said he did not want to, nor could he. The king was shocked. The boy said he had entrance exams next year and had to go back to school in a fortnight, so he asked to be returned to his world. The girl said not to worry and that he would return to his world. The king turned to her. It was Princess Denaris. The hero thought she was a typical beautiful princess from the ice sky. The one said that magic to move across worlds required many mana stones, so he would have to gather them first. The hero asked how long it would take. She replied that since they had used all their supply of mana stones to summon him, it would take about 50 years, unless of course they were exterminated by the demon lord by then. The boy was shocked. He asked again if it couldn't be quicker. The princess replied that if she defeated the demon lord, he could go home immediately, as he would probably receive a very large mana stone for defeating him. A few months later, Rigi was battling an orc. He was thinking about the fact that he had signed up to defeat the demon lord and return home. He thought he was called to this world because of his great potential, so his character and began to develop to become the warrior that everyone sees in him. The orc was defeated. Rigi crouched down on his knees to catch his breath, and Denaris used a treatment on him. The boy thanked. The girl said that he would have to train hard if he wanted to become a great warrior. She said she was very worried when he was almost killed by a level 1 slug. The hero replied that he was still a schoolboy and felt he was getting stronger, but it would be more practical if there was at least some way to show level here, so he had to be careful. Rigi asked why the princess went with him. Ta asked if he was worried about her. She said not to worry, she wasn't afraid of low-level monsters. The girl said that he lacked stamina and by building up his stamina, he would be able to fight non-stop. She suggested focusing on that. The hero thought about the fact that she was much stronger than him. He asked if she could go easy on him. Denaris said she would help him until he learnt to heal on his own, that it was impossible that he should die. She said he should thank her. Toph did so. A year later, the hero defeated the Minotaur. He was very happy, said that he had defeated a low-level boss and passed the dungeon. The princess said that she never thought it would take him a whole year to pass the first dungeon. She asked what was next for them. Rigi said that he knows healing magic now, so the next dungeon will go much faster. He asked the girl why she is still walking with him, glad he now knows how to heal. The one asked what he would do when he ran out of mana and if he had thought about it. The boy replied that he didn't even know. The princess said she would accompany him until he learned how to make potions, and that it was rather rash to rely on healing magic alone. The hero thanked, thinking that she was a tsundere. 6 months later, Rigi rejoiced that the second dungeon had been passed and he could now make healing potions as well. Denaris told him to keep his nose clean and that there were still many more dungeons. The boy asked if they had to go through them all and if the main thing was to defeat the Demon King and the rest was not important. The girl said that the Demon Lord is not comparable to the dungeon bosses, and until he passes all the dungeons, he may not even think of going after the Demon Lord. The hero replied that it sounded hard. She said she wouldn't want him to die, so she asked him to train harder. Rigi became embarrassed. He asked if she had to go with him. The princess asked if he was a fool and what would happen if he ran out of mana. She said that healing potions don't restore mana and she would accompany him until he learned how to make mana potions. The boy decided that she was definitely a tsundere. 5 years later, Rigi was battling a huge dragon. The one was aiming directly at the princess. She was very scared and didn't know what to do. The hero realized that he had to act quickly. The girl clutched, and when she opened her eyes she saw the defeated dragon. The hero said that it was close and it was good that he had made it in time. On the way home, he said that they had already passed half of the dungeons, and if they kept it up, he thought in 2 years they would be able to fight the Demon King. The girl turned to him. She said that it seems like she has become a burden to him. Rigi said that with his current abilities, it was difficult to fight monsters and defend himself at the same time, and since he could now make mana potions, it would be better if she stayed in the castle. Denaris angrily slapped him. He asked what she was doing. The girl angrily interjected what he had just said. The one, embarrassed, replied that he was glad she was staying with him and thanked her. She giggled embarrassedly. The princess said that the people of this world cannot defeat the Demon King, but she knows that Rigi can. The one replied that he would try his best. The girl said that she would wait for him at the castle. Avoiding unnecessary details, 10 years have passed. The hero was on the verge of death more than once, but he still managed to defeat the Demon Lord. At the castle, the king turned to Rigi. He said that he had saved them from the Demon Lord's oppression, and on behalf of all the people of this world, they thanked him sincerely. He asked the boy if he was sure he wanted to return to his world. He said he would be once if he married Daenerys and took the throne. The girl became embarrassed. The hero thanked but said he wanted to go home and see his family again. He said he was sorry. The princess was puzzled. Tears flowed from her eyes. The man turned to her and took her by the shoulder. Daenerys began to recite a spell. A magic circle appeared under the hero's feet. He was surprised. In parting, he told the girl to take care. She told him to shut up and go back to his world already. Reggie began to teleport. That's how he got back to his world. On the road, he met a girl. She asked the hero if everything was alright. He turned to her. It was Mitsuhashi Kiko. They know her from first grade. In other words, she is his childhood friend. The boy said she hadn't changed at all and asked why she was still wearing her school uniform. Kiko questioned in surprise. It turned out that in his world those 10 years had not passed at all and he had not aged a day. The hero asked her for a mirror for a second. Looking into it, he thought that the tsundere princess had brought him back to a time when he was still an 8th grader. As he approached Furia's house, he thought that the most important thing was that he still came home. Mom asked Reggie what was wrong and if there was any food left on her lips. He replied with a smile that everything was fine, it was just that so much time had passed and he had been in a different world for so many years. His mom laughingly asked what he was about and if he had had a bad dream. The hero thought it was to be expected that response. His mom said that she and his dad were going out shopping, so she asked him to look after the house. Kiko wished her a good trip. As he left the house, the hero thought about buying himself some chips and soda and sitting down to watch anime, that now he could enjoy life to the fullest. On the way out of the shop, he reflected on how much he loved his world, that he was very happy to be back. Suddenly he met Kiko again. She shouted, asking if he was okay. The girl shouted that his parents had been in an accident. Reggie frightenedly interjected. At the hospital, he was told that the car his parents were driving had collided with a lorry and death had caught up with them instantly. The doctor said he was sorry. The hero did not understand how it happened. He wondered why it happened as soon as he got back, if it was some kind of joke. The boy thought it must be the Demon King's curse or the price for defeating him, that those were the only reasons he could think of. A funeral had taken place. Kiko said where she would put the ashes of Reggie's parents. He thanked her. The girl said she would bring the rest. The hero agreed. He looked at the pictures of his mom and dad, thinking that he had finally defeated the Demon King and come home. Some people outside the door shouted that they were the boy's relatives, that it was about their family, so asked him to get out of the way. The hero turned round. Several men and a woman came through the door. One of the men said hello to Reggie. He asked how much the man got from the insurance, and if it was too much. The hero recognized the man as his uncle. The woman asked him if he knew that all the insurance money and inheritance belonged to her and his uncle, and since he was still a child, he could not legally receive anything. The boy was puzzled. She said that if he did not give them the money, they would take the matter to the police. She asked if he wanted to go to juvenile detention. Kiko, looking out of the door, said she was going home. The man said the boy's dad had an expensive watch and it was his now. His son said he would take his trademark suit and that daddy was unlikely to fit into it. One of the men asked Reggie what the man was frozen about. He told him to give them the insurance money and that he shouldn't lie that he had squandered it on a funeral. The other said that they would have to sign the house over to them too, that it wasn't their wishful thinking, that it was all legal and you could ask a lawyer. A woman asked where all the jewelry was and asked the boy to bring her the jewelry. The hero thought that these were the relatives, and what were they thinking, barging in on him. He said he couldn't, that his parents' things would stay with him. The relatives were puzzled. The man interrogated what the man had said. The uncle asked whom the man dared to cross, adding that he was the head of the influential Tanahashi family. The woman shouted that the Furia family was a rotten branch and should obey them. The boy replied that such are their arguments, that they seem to be adults but in reality they never grew a brain. The uncle shouted, asking what he had said. The aunt shouted that he was insolent, all over his parents, that he should be taught a lesson. One of the men asked the father if he would raise his share for it. The boy's uncle answered in the affirmative, but said not to beat his face, for the bruises should not be visible. Another man asked if Reggie had pissed in his pants. They surrounded the boy and took hold of him with their hands. The three boys struck with their fists. After the punch, looking at the hero, they were surprised. The boy managed to deftly dodge and step aside. Everyone turned round to look at him. The hero thought that they were like snails, slower than level 2 goblins, even slower than slugs. The guys grabbed him again and shouted at him to stand still. Reggie wondered if they themselves were ashamed of saying such things. They hit the boy again, but they all hit the door. The woman asked them what they were fiddling about. The uncle asked if everything was all right. The boy replied that he was fine and the man could take it easy. The man shouted that the hero had nothing to do with it. All three boys' hands were terribly sore after hitting the door. One of them said it was like he was made of concrete. The uncle and aunt shouted at them. Hero stepped forward confidently. He used the skill hypnosis. Reggie told the uncle and aunt that they would not be able to move or speak, that they would only answer his questions and only the truth. He said that it looked like the two of them had pulled this sort of thing off more than once before. The boy asked if they extort property by cheating people. The uncle asked if that impressed him. He said he was very cunning, that a foolish man would not think of such a thing, asking the hero to agree. Reggie thought he had not expected such directness. He turned to everyone. They, under hypnosis, listened. The boy thought about how the hypnosis skill wasn't all that useful when he was fighting the Demon King and his henchmen, but he was sure the skill could be used for more than just pulling information. He thought that here where the people of his world's resistance to magic was quite low, hence the skill was so effective. There were letters lying in front of the hero. He thanked for all those condolence letters, that it was as expected from the head of House Tanahashi, and he wanted to say something, but Reggie interrupted, saying that he could see that it was only half. Leaving, the uncle thanked the hero for teaching their children a lesson. The boy replied that he was expecting the remaining donations from them, that there was no need to visit him on the 7th and 40th day of the wake. He thought about the fact that his hypnotized aunt and uncle had withdrawn all their money, leaving only change for transport costs to get home. He thought that they had even taken out loans to the best of their ability and then sent him that money in condolence letters. The hero thought that the money was not as much as he expected and he hoped that they would learn a lesson from it. Reggie thought that if he had left with his parents then, all of this could have been avoided, that if his mom and dad had been alive, his uncle wouldn't have turned up. He wondered if he had done the right thing. As he cried, he thought about the fact that he had only shed tears over his parents' ashes, and yet he had held his own at the funeral. A few weeks later, he and Kiko were walking down the street. She asked him if he had seen the news. The boy asked if it was about the good harvest this year. The girl shouted that it wasn't about that, but about the very news that dungeons had appeared all over the world. The hero interjected. The girl said it's just like in the games, dungeons that are crawling with monsters. Reggie hesitated for a moment. She said that the military around the world had started exploring, but it seemed to be all in vain, that the opposition party in Japan wouldn't stop berating the government for supposedly being unconstitutional, and the opposition was no joke. She said that with the advent of undergrounds, all the oil and coal mines have started to wither away and it's kind of crazy. The hero queried whether this was serious. Kiko said that the experts say that if this keeps going on, all their resources will quickly run out. She asked what they would do, adding that she wouldn't survive if they went back to the Stone Age. Reggie thought about the Stone Age and said that there wasn't even anime there, after all. The girl said that the government is calling an emergency meeting about it, but the opposition won't stop opposing and protesting, creating a bunch of problems, that the parties are protesting and seem to be creating hemorrhoids too. The character asked why this is so. Kiko replied that she doesn't know exactly, but that they probably just don't like these policies, that they say they are too spontaneous and that there is no need for any measures. She said that the depletion of resources was definitely related to the appearance of the dungeon, otherwise what was it all about? Reggie thought that she was right. He said that he would have to see what and how it was. The girl replied that they write different things on the internet. The hero thought that obviously he wasn't talking about the internet at all. The police were guarding the dungeon. The hero walked right past them. He thought about the fact that the guards here were solid, all at the ready, and it was good that he possessed the transparency spell so it wasn't difficult to pass by. He wondered why the dungeons had appeared so suddenly. At the entrance, he thought that the one exactly the same. Inside, there was a downward slope. Reggie thought about how he had seen this dungeon before, and if this was really a dungeon from another world. He thought that if it was, then he already had experience passing through. There were slugs on the first level and goblins on the second level. He thought about the fact that his guess was right and this was definitely a dungeon from another world. He decided it was worth looking deeper. He sat on the floor thinking that the dungeon was absolutely identical. He sat across from a dragon chopped in half. The boy thought that monsters could be hunted in the same way and extract mana stones and ore from them that way. He thought that there was still hope if one could hunt the monsters, which would probably start appearing again and again, and the resource problem could be solved. The hero thought that the fact that the military's exploration of the dungeons had not been successful suggests that the weapons of this world are not effective against the monsters of the dungeons, and so the only possible path left for them is to follow in the footsteps of the people from the other world. Reggie thought that in that world, resources could only be obtained in dungeons, that over time, there were people who hunted monsters to obtain these resources, and they were called adventurers. He hoped that they too would have people who would take on this role. The hero decided to remove the dragon drop to his inventory. He figured that the king saw potential in him, a man from another world, and so there would surely be people like him in his world. The boy used the teleporter. He found himself in front of the exit of the first level dungeon. Reggie thought about how he was hungry after the dungeon and would need to buy food on the way home. The boy looked at his hand thoughtfully. The first level was written on it. The hero thought that it was strange, and even though all his abilities had traveled with him, he is still shown level 1. The hero thought that this number did not exist before he went down into the dungeon. He used curse removal, but the first level remained on his palm. The boy thought that it had no effect at all. The guard asked the other one if he heard anything. The one replied that there was silence all around. Reggie heard them and used invisibility again. The guard said that from the looks of it, he had imagined it. The hero thought that the invisibility spell was still very handy. The man still had suspicions. He said that with the appearance of something like this, resources would only dwindle. He asked what would happen to their world. The boy watched them from around the corner. He used a teleporter, thinking of it as a rather handy spell that allowed him to travel between any points he visited, unless he was in a dungeon. Reggie found himself back at his home thanks to the teleport. He said he came home as he suddenly realized he had forgotten to buy himself lunch. He lay down on his bed thinking that he was too lazy to go outside now. Kiko came in to see him and the hero said hello to her. She said that her mom had asked her to pass him some beef stew. She asked why he was still in his school uniform. The food was on the table. The girl said she borrowed his plates. The hero shouted happily that it looked appetizing. He wished Kiko a pleasant appetite and began to eat very quickly. The girl told him to chew thoroughly. Reggie said that his aunt cooks the best. Kiko asked how he liked the salad, adding that she made it herself. The boy replied that it felt properly chopped and had store-bought mayonnaise in it. She shouted asking what that comment was. The hero thanked her for the treat. The girl said they could play now and that they hadn't done it in a while. Reggie declined, explaining that he was busy. Kiko asked what he was busy with, adding that he wasn't one of the most sociable people after all. The one held out his palm with a level forward and told her to look. The girl was puzzled and asked what she was supposed to look at. All she saw was an empty palm. The boy realized that she could not see the level. He asked her to let her see her hands. Kiko did not understand anything but agreed. Examining her hands, the hero realized that there was nothing on them. She became very embarrassed and pulled her hand away, asking him to stop. She asked what was wrong with him. The girl said she went. The hero thanked her and asked her to give this to his aunt. He hesitated for a moment. Looking at his hand, he thought about the fact that probably the level indicator on his hand had something to do with dungeons. The boy surmised that it was the level of an adventurer, and if he was right, it was rather strange that a hero who defeated a demon king was given an entry level. He thought that he had too little information for the big picture, that staying in the dungeon for a long time was tiring and it was time to hit the sidelines. He decided that tomorrow he could conquer the second dungeon in Ueno Park. The hero fell asleep. The police were approaching the dungeon. A man shouted for everyone to be on guard, that they would not be able to use electricity or gunpowder in the dungeon. The other wondered if the man wasn't being overly exuberant, that even in a dungeon with so many people nothing could stop them. Suddenly water dripped on his helmet from above. He raised his head. The guy was doused with water and then he was stuck in a bubble of liquid. The man in charge shouted to look up. There were slimes up there. He shouted for the policemen not to get right under them. The liquid around the guy who was caught took on the appearance of a slime. The man yelled for everyone to surround him and attack. The monster hit the guy's helmet, causing the helmet to melt. One of the guys said that they slowed down the slime. The guy in charge replied that was great and now they needed to destroy the core. The core was shot with a dart. The slime began to dissolve and release the guy. Everyone shouted joyfully that they had won. The chief told the others to collect all the magic slime and mana stones, and don't forget about the drop items. He told Kaneko to keep an eye on the perimeter. The latter agreed. He asked if anyone had been caught. He was told it was Sato the policeman and the slime had crushed him to death. One of the guys asked if they were going on. The captain thought about the fact that they only had 17 mana stones. There were 12 people from the self-defense troops and 10 from the fire service. He said the operation was over and they were retreating, adding for the boys to carefully move the corpse of Sato the policeman. All agreed. The police left the dungeon. The man said he had brought the captain. The captain sitting at the table asked the guy if a level appeared on his arm and asked him to show. The man said he did and showed his hand. The captain said that from that day onwards the fellow was suspended from duty. The fellow was puzzled. The captain told the fellow to go to counseling, get his allowance and take a leave of absence. The fellow started to walk away with a sad expression on his face. The captain said to wait and asked what the guy saw on his arm. The man said he could see level 2. The man replied that on his own he saw level 3 in the inscription warrior. Kiko wished the hero a good morning. The man reciprocated. The girl said that about the numbers on his palm, they heard that sometimes they appear on those who pass the dungeon and it shows the adventurer's level and profession. Reggie replied that he understood. Kiko asked if he was watching TV, adding that America already has 20 grand of these and there are the most of them there. The hero replied that they have a real pioneering spirit. The girl said that in Japan there are 2 policemen, 5 from the self-defense force and 1 from the fire brigade walking around with the same plates. She said that it is rumored that there are many more, but as the symbols are only seen by the wearer himself, no one can confirm for sure. The boy thought about what does it mean that this is really the adventurer level, then there was an error in his level and the profession is not displayed. Kiko said that she too had been looking at her hands for a long time and it would be so cool to become one of the adventurers. The hero looked at her. She said that a lot of people admire adventurers nowadays and asked if it was cool that it was a lucrative business. Rigi replied that maybe she was right. He walked into the classroom and said good morning. His friend reciprocated him. The hero asked what all the fuss was about, looking at a bunch of classmates. One of the boys asked Yokoyama how many floors he had traveled so far. The one replied that he was currently on the 4th floor, and the monsters there are pretty strong, as the others know for themselves. He told his classmates not to make a big deal out of it, since he was doing it illegally. The boy said that it's cool that his classmate is a dungeon conqueror. The hero's friend said that Yokoyama got the mark of an adventurer. Rigi wondered. The boy said that he would like to go into the dungeon himself and test himself, but until he graduates from high school it's illegal. The hero was surprised that there was already such a law. The lesson began. The teacher told Yokoyama to come to the principal's office, that he heard they were visited by the police. The classmates were discussing that the one was very cool and apparently he had been exposed. Rigi wondered. The teacher turned to the class and motioned for them to begin. The hero raised his hand and asked to go to the toilet. He said that he had to take a piss so he wouldn't be back for a while. The teacher replied that he might not have specified. The boy came to the toilet and used clairvoyance. He could see what was happening to Yokoyama. The captain turned to the one and apologized for them pulling him right out of class. He said that they had not come to arrest him, that they wanted to have a little talk. The man explained that people with the mark of adventurer were starting to appear all over the world and each one was extremely important. Rigi listened attentively. The captain asked the boy for his level and profession. The one replied that he was level 6 and a thief. The man said that if the one was not lying, that was just excellent. He said that at the moment the highest level belonged to a guy from America who had reached level 8. Yokoyama laughed nervously. The hero thought it was time for the one to finish. The captain asked the boy holding a piece of glass in his hand if he had come across something like this since he was already level 6. The man asked what it was. The man said that it was known as a scout, a rare item to be found in the dungeon. He said that usually only the man himself was able to see his own level, but with the help of a scout, one could see someone else's level. Rigi was very surprised. He thought that he wanted such a scout too. The captain asked Yokoyama to show him his hand. The man shouted, asking for forgiveness. He shouted that he was not an adventurer, that he had never even gone into the dungeon, that he had done it to become popular. The hero was surprised. The man said to let him know if he gets the tag after graduation. The hero thought that Yokoyama thought he could fool everyone because the tag is only seen by the wearer, and do such people really exist? Someone discussed that exploring the dungeons for those who didn't appear to have the tag was very dangerous, so entry was strictly limited. There was a huge queue lined up to check. The man asked Kunimi what they would do if they were not allowed in. The man replied to the boss that everything would be fine. He said that they had obtained all the necessary documents, that the state could not accuse them of anything, and exploring the dungeons was their civil right. He asked for permission to let them pass. The man read everything carefully and then said that the documents were in order and they could pass. The boss said that it was amazing that they got in. Kunimi replied that a lawyer had posted a video on MyTube about how to get into the dungeon, that he had watched it and prepared everything in advance. He said that he didn't get any tag and asked what about the boss. The latter replied that he also had nothing. Kunimi told him not to worry, that they could still go all out, that there should be slimes on the ground floor and they could be defeated without any superpowers. The boss asked if they were sure they could do it. The guy replied that it would work, because he had watched a bunch of strategy videos from adventurers. Boss said that it was unbelievable that people had already started making strategy videos. Kunimi replied that cameras don't work in the dungeon, so these videos mostly consisted of conversations and notes from past forays. They walked in the dark, shining torches. The guy thought about the fact that he had printed out the map from the video, but it didn't show this passageway on the left. The boss asked if something was wrong. Kunimi replied that everything was fine and offered to move on. He thought about not bothering the boss and it must be that the author of the video just forgot about this passage. There was a big slime in front of them. The boys shouted that a slime had appeared and they needed to corner it. They ran the other way, but there was another slime there. Kunimi shouted that this was not in the guide and there should be no slimes here. At this time at his house, a guy was sitting at his computer. He said that he had already had a lot of hits accumulated and he couldn't wait to get his money. The girl asked which one the guy was talking about and if it was the false dungeon capture guide. The guy replied that it was about him, and the views are just rabid. The girl asked who only watches that crap, adding that she couldn't understand them. The guy assumed it was downsized employees. He said he heard a lot of companies went bankrupt. In the dungeon, the boss yelled that it wasn't a fact that they could overpower one, and here they had two of them at once and they didn't stand a chance. Kunimi shouted that he would distract them and asked the guy to run away. He shouted to the guy. Kunimi started hitting the slime with the bat. A layer of slime formed on the bat and began to melt. The guy shouted that he needed a weapon as suddenly the slime began to envelop him. First it engulfed his legs, he screamed loudly. Soon he was in the slime completely, wondering if he was going to die. The boss also started clubbing the slime attack, shouting for him to let go of Kunimi. The guy's head showed out of the slime. The boss shouted to him to just wait, he would save him. The guy shouted that it was useless, that he should just run away. After all, he had a wife and daughter. The boss disagreed and continued hitting him with the club. He shouted that he would not be able to face his family if he abandoned his subordinate, that Kunimi would not die and he would get him out at any cost. Suddenly, he himself was completely covered in slime. The boy was confused. He thought about the fact that he had met his boss 3 years ago, going from meth to meth after juvenile detention center. Some man said they'd love to help him get back on his feet. He asked the guy if he happened to go near the cash register. In fact, it turned out that they were all just talkers. The woman apologized and said that she seemed to have miscounted the proceeds. The man said that with Kunimi's past, their suspicions were not surprising. And then he got the boss. The man said he believed that everyone deserved a chance to start over. The boy didn't believe him at first, thinking he was just pretending to be kind. The guys surrounded Kunimi. One of them said that they needed to sell the goods from the warehouse to the black market, that Tatsumi would give him the route. The boy told the older one that he was done getting involved in everything, that he was starting his life over. The latter told the boy to then give up the contents of the lorry. Kunimi said he refused, that he had a new life and if they continued to pry he would call the police. The older man shouted, asking who the boy was gaping at, adding that he would know. The boys started kicking him with their hands. The boy asked what to do about the truck. Kunimi shouted for everyone to stay away from it. The lorry was engulfed in flames. The lad ended up in the hospital. He thought about the fact that this was the end. The boss came into the room. He shouted, asking how Kunimi's injuries were. The man apologized for the lorry and the goods. The boss said that everything was fine, no need to worry, that everything was insured and yes, he had savings for such situations. He asked next time not to try to put out the fire on your own. Kunimi turned to his boss. He thought the man was a good man. The boss had tears flowing. He said he could buy a new lorry but no one would replace the boy for him. He asked to try to take more care of himself. The boy thought about how everything was because of him because he believed that fake video. He turned to God and asked if there is one to save at least the boss. Suddenly the cores were pierced by someone and the guys were released from the liquid. Rigi said he made it in time. Kunimi said that he had saved him and asked what was wrong with the boss. The hero replied that he would use healing magic and asked the guy to make sure he didn't move. He said they could both be helped and asked not to worry. The hero used healing on them and said they were fine. Kunimi thanked and said that if the hero hadn't come they would have been killed. He thought about the fact that his prayers had been answered. Rigi replied that they shouldn't be and he was just passing by. The guy asked what his name was, adding that he wanted to thank him properly. The character replied that he would prefer to remain anonymous. He said that if they didn't change their gear, they would die like that in obscurity. As they left, he said that this floor belonged to the slimes, and if they planned to hunt them, it would be better to fish them out one at a time in a space 20 meters wide. And if they would attack in pairs, one should be the target and the other beaten, then so in turn. He said he would go, and he had yet to reach the scout. Kunimi was very surprised. He thought that even among the police and self-defense forces there were a bunch of casualties, and this guy took out the slimes with one punch. He thought that the one-so scout is a rare loot that drops from monsters. It allows you to see the level and profession of another person. The Japanese government bought back all of the finds from adventurers at a fabulous price. The scout was now in Rigi's possession as well. He said that only 3 to combat damage was rubbish. As he looked in the mirror, he thought about the fact that he looked pretty good. Hearing a knock on the door, he let himself in and saw Kiko in front of him. The woman said that she had come to study with him. Looking at him, she asked if he was wearing a scout. The hero realized that he had forgotten to take it off. The girl shouted that it was a good model. She asked where he bought it, adding that she was making costume number 29 right now and it would be perfect for cosplay. Rigi replied that it wouldn't fit her design. She said that one would fit her as well and asked again where he found it. The hero turned his attention to her palm. He was surprised to see level 1 in the warrior profession there. Kiko asked what was the matter. The boy pondered that she has the adventurer's mark, and even though she didn't enter the dungeon, he can still see it. The girl turned to him again. He thought about the fact that people with that mark had a good chance of becoming adventurers, but if a newcomer went into the dungeon without an experienced guide in the other world, he had seen too often how it ended. The hero said Kiko wouldn't buy it, that it was a rare prize from the lottery. She replied that she was very jealous of him. The boy decided that it was pointless to think about it now and he would deal with problems as they came. He thought that his profession was not displayed and it was probably some kind of glitch. Besides, his level itself was strange. The girl said she would stop by and offered to do his homework. Reggie agreed. She said that his knowledge had improved a lot over the holidays and he even got first place in the exams. She asked how he had done that. The hero interjected. He said that he just read textbooks at his leisure. The girl asked if he was sure he wasn't lying, adding that maybe he had actually cheated. The hero got angry. He said that in truth, he had gone to another world and there he honed his knowledge. He rejoiced that he had told her the truth. Kiko asked in surprise if he was serious. She asked where this other world was. The boy asked again. She said she wanted to go there too. The girl asked if he was near the station, adding that when she took the winter course, she found it easier to cope too. The hero thought about how the other world is not a preparatory course. In that world, he defeated a monster, which he was happy about. He said that the monster may be physically strong, but against magic, it has no chance. The princess asked if he knew that the copper turtle would continue to regenerate until he destroyed the core. The hero asked where she had the nucleus. The girl replied that it was under her shell. She suggested speeding up until the turtle was up again. Reggie said that it was not as easy as it seemed, and one blade would not be enough here. Daenerys said that on second thought, it wasn't the kind of monster a beginner could handle alone. She asked if he needed help, which made her blush. The hero replied that he didn't need to. Suddenly, the turtle woke up and threw him off. He was surprised that the monster revived and used thunder. The turtle fell motionless again and Reggie continued hitting its shell. The girl said that apparently they were here for a long time. She made a tea party while sitting at a table. At last the core was destroyed. The princess rejoiced. The hero said that the copper turtle was finished. He was surprised to feel the feeling again. His body felt lighter and his vision was better. Daenerys said it was a great job and she could see that the hero had leveled up, so now it was okay to take a break. The one asked where the tea set in the dungeon came from. The girl replied that she brought it in her storage and offered to sit down. She said she would put the materials and the drop from the copper turtle in the vault. Reggie said that he wanted the same skill. He said he didn't see his level displayed anywhere and asked if there was any way he could recognize it. The girl replied in the affirmative. She said that his level had just gone up when he killed the copper turtle. After all, the hero asked if that sense of dexterity was a level increase and asked her to tell him more. The princess was surprised that she hadn't talked about it yet. Reggie said he wished he could remember how many times he had already managed to raise his level. Daenerys said she remembered everything. She offered to taste the pastries. The hero interjected. The girl said that his intelligence and all other parameters increased as his level increased, and it was worth it to see something once and she would remember it in every detail. She again offered to taste something she herself had baked. The hero asked if it was true that the more monsters he killed, the stronger he would become. The princess replied that in general terms it is. The boy thought about the fact that if his skills persisted in the other world, after killing the Demon King, he might become the smartest in his homeland. Daenerys asked how the pastry tasted to him, adding that she was afraid he might not like it. Suddenly, the monster ran at them. Reggie shouted that it was a copper turtle again. The princess marveled at how resilient they were. She used magic and the hero ran to attack. The monster was split in two. The boy was very surprised. He thought it would be the same with her as the first one, but it seemed to be a matter of leveling up, and all its characteristics improved. The heart-shaped biscuits were smashed on the floor. Daenerys was very upset. The hero thought that she was so upset because they were her favorite sweets. He said he killed the 3 slimes first, then the goblins from the first floor. Reggie said that was amazing and he was able to remember everything after all. He said that nevertheless the intelligence increase paired with the level increase was overkill. At that point, he had already pumped his level up to 73. He thought that maybe now he could remember all his favorite phrases from the anime. When the hero defeated the Demon King, his level was above 14-0. In Japan, the 3rd general exam was being held after Reggie returned from the other world. The teacher said that it was time to start their exam and that the students should not cheat. The hero was glad that he knew the answers to all the problems. He thought that all he had to do was read the textbook once, and that all the labor in that world had not been wasted. The teacher said that he would now announce the results. He said that Furia had won first place and had scored 496 points in 5 subjects. The hero thought that was excellent. The teacher said that he and Reggie needed to talk about his future and asked him to stop by the teacher's room after class. He was puzzled. His classmates told the hero that he was doing well and they still couldn't believe it. His friend said he was surprised by his knowledge and asked him to tell him what the magic was. Reggie apologized and said that his teacher had called him so he would go. The teacher asked him how he had grown so fast. He said that if he wanted to go to that institute, it was time for him to decide on a high school. The hero replied that he would think about it. The other teachers discussed that he was Furia's best student. The boy thought that he was in over his head and that standing out from the crowd was too painful. As he walked down the corridor, the students were discussing that it was Furuya, the second-year student, the one who had won first place. That one thought about how it was like child's play for him, but it was better to try to show average knowledge that he wouldn't be able to dive into the dungeon with such attention. He thought that he had risked his life to defeat the Demon King, and he was not going to miss his chance for a peaceful life. In the present, Kiko suggested that he come up with more stories about her reincarnation as a villain. The hero thought about it. He wondered if there was even any point in asking her to believe him. The girl said that there was no way she could solve this problem. Reggie replied that she needed to use this equation. She said that he was really a real hero from another world and very clever. There was a lot of food on the table. Kiko asked if it was true that after homework, the brain was asking for sweets. The hero said yes. She asked him if he wanted to go with her for a level assessment. He asked again. The girl asked if he had heard that they were going to build a high school for adventurers in the city center. She said that only those with the adventurer's mark were accepted there, so the representatives of the Ministry of Culture had decided to evaluate the third-year high school with a scout, and naturally, they had a real one, unlike Reggie's scout. The boy said that this is how it is. Kiko asked if he wanted to know if he had the mark of an adventurer, adding to make him remember even his story of another world. The hero answered in the negative. The girl was very surprised. The hero thought about the fact that he already knew he had it. Kiko asked if he wasn't the least bit interested. The boy replied that he wasn't the least bit interested, and he was too lazy to go there. She asked in surprise if that was true. She lowered her head and then said that she somehow didn't feel much like going alone. The hero realized that this was the same sneaky look that she had been using this trick since she was in Nappa's. Kiko asked if he would go with her. Reggie agreed, thinking it was a defeat. The girl got excited and thanked him. She said he was a great hero. She said goodbye and said she was off. The hero thought about the level assessment and remembered how he and the princess walked through the dungeon. He asked Daenerys if she thought that not being able to see her level was not the most convenient thing. She replied that she had never thought about it. She said that maybe it would indeed be more convenient, but it would also add to the problems. The girl said that she has heard rumors that some of the nobles who claim to have high levels are actually making things up. That if the levels are seen by everyone, they won't be able to pretend anymore, and she feels that it will lead to that more scuffle. The character asked why would anyone lie about their level. Daenerys called him a fool and said that people like to look down on those below them. She said that even Reggie would do that when he overtook her in level. The one was surprised and said that he was not going to do that. The girl replied that everyone says that. The hero said that they had summoned him to this world by using energy that would be enough for a state for 50 years and asked if that was true. The princess replied that it was. The boy said that even though she said he was the savior of this world, it was she who most often saved it out of trouble, and besides, she had managed to perform a super complicated spell, realizing that there would be no second attempt. He said he admired her too much to look down on her. Daenerys looked at him seriously. He said that the summoned hero turned out to be a frail schoolboy who must be accompanied everywhere lest he die. The boy said that he had certainly grown a little stronger, but the girl was always babysitting him and couldn't spare a little time for herself. He said that if he was asked to do the same, he wouldn't be able to do it, that the princess is amazing. Reggie said that is why, even if he has even 100, even 1000 level, he will never be able to look down on her. The girl's tears flowed and she covered her face with her hands. The hero said he wanted to apologize if he had offended. Daenerys told him to just shut up. At Daenerys' request, they temporarily stopped exploring the dungeon that day. The hero thought about seeing his level and profession in this world. Discrimination in level and profession might start. He thought that not the most popular professions and low-level professions would have a hard time. The boy thought he was a hero, so his level was over 14-0, so he was not concerned. He looked at his hand with his first level and had a bad feeling. People were sitting around the table. One of them told Chairman Takahashi that according to their data, there was active dungeon exploration going on in all countries, including the United States. The one said that when the available resources are finally exhausted, they will have to mine new ones in the undergrounds. The other said that for Japan's sake they should send as many adventurers there as soon as possible. Takahashi agreed. He said that it was fortunate that a large number of dungeons had appeared in their country, and furthermore, the percentage of adventurers among their townspeople was extremely high, as much as 2%, when the world average was only 0.5%. He said that those numbers wouldn't make much difference unless they found all of those 2% and sent them to the dungeons. The man said they have already dramatically raised the price of all the items found in the dungeons. He asked if the others had any other offers. The man said that they should widen their talent search circles, especially they should look among the youth. The girl said that they had introduced a law allowing high school students to visit dungeons, and they also planned to hold a level test among high school graduates. Takahashi asked what about the permission to build an adventure school. He thought it could determine the future of their country. Meanwhile, a crowd had gathered outside the building where the level test was being held. Rigi said he was surprised there were so many people. Kiko said that people from their school are full and all want to become adventurers. The hero said that they just want to make some money. The girl replied that he was right, that they said that even if you just hunt slimes from the ground floor, you can earn many times more per month than the average office clerk. Someone shouted that this was ridiculous. He asked to check it again. The boy asked him to let him see for himself. The man said he couldn't, that it was expensive equipment and if he broke it, he would have to pay more than 100 million yen. The boy disappointedly went to the exit. The hero said then the latter took it too much in stride. Kiko said she understood his feelings, but it was too much. The hero, using sensitive hearing, heard the inspector saying how difficult it was to deal with the children, that there were so many of them problematic and he already wanted to go home. Rigi thought that the man was already at his limit. The man said Mitsuhashi Kiko was next. The one said she was going. The inspector said that according to the scout she has level 1 and a warrior profession. The girl shouted happily. The Q discussed that it was awesome and that it was Mitsuhashi from their school. Someone in the crowd said that it seems the mark of an adventurer is not that common. The inspector said he would advise the girl to sign up for the Adventurer Academy. The girl replied that she would definitely do so, that she was already looking forward to it. The man said that Furuya was next. The boy said he was going. He held out his palm that had the first level on it. The man hesitated for a moment. The hero asked what was there. He thought about the fact that after all, he was not the only one who could not see his profession. The man said that his mark was missing. Rigi was surprised. He shouted out asking him to wait and take another look. Kiko told him to knock it off, that she knew it was hurtful but there was no need to embarrass himself. The boy said that wasn't the point and he definitely had the mark of an adventurer. The girl told Takasahi that this kid definitely has a level 1 on his hand. The one asked him not to say too much. He said that the boy lacked a profession and it would be best if he forgot the idea of becoming an adventurer. The hero asked what he meant. The man thought that this was another problem. He asked if Rigi was so eager to know. He said that to conquer a dungeon, people form a pack of several people, and if you stick in there alone, you can be killed even on the ground floor. The children listened. The inspector said that in a pack, a balance between attackers and those who will defend from the rear is important. That profession determines special skills, spells, and bonus status points. He said that without a profession, the contribution would be 0, and roughly speaking, the hero would become deadweight. The boy said that his profession was not displayed only because of a random error, that he felt he really had one. The inspector did not know what to do. Rigi said that he had enough strength to walk in the dungeon even alone. The man shouted that enough was enough, that one was just a kid who had never even been there once, which you couldn't tell from himself, but he was a level 6 mage who had been to the 5th floor. He shouted that the kid didn't realize how dangerous the dungeon could be. Rigi thought that was being said to a hero who had been to the 999th floor. The Q discussed what was going on there and what they were arguing about. Kiko said that the hero was overreacting. The man interjected and said he didn't mean to bring it to that point. He bowed and apologized, saying that he had argued with the inspector even though he had never entered the dungeon, that he couldn't even imagine the man fighting mad bees from the 5th floor. Takahashi corrected the scout. The girl beckoned for Rigi to go. The man agreed. The man wondered why the boy talked about crazy bees, since information about the 5th floor was still highly classified. Kiko told the hero that he was surprisingly unstoppable. The man replied that it was his fault. The girl said she was glad they both had the adventurer's mark, that they should apply to school together. The boy agreed. A guy ran up to them and asked if Mitsuhashi had a minute and the latter realized that it was Ito. The hero assumed it was Kiko's classmate. The guy said that they found a tag on him and he is a level 1 hunter. The girl said cheerfully that it was awesome. Rigi thought about how they both looked happy and were lovely to look at. Ito said that there would be an instructional session on professions nearby. He asked the girl if she wanted to go with him. She replied that she didn't even know. The boy said that she was obliged to listen to the briefing and called her again. She agreed and said goodbye to the hero. Ito said what a relief that someone he knew also had the mark of an adventurer. Kiko embarrassedly replied that she understood him. Rigi looked at them in their wake. In the UK, County Greenwich, a girl was addressing people. She said they were finding it increasingly difficult to raise their level on the 4th floor, so today they would go down to the 5th floor. The girl said that this is a dangerous dungeon, so she asked them not to let their guard down. The team said with glee that the Countess could count on them. The girl said then they are going to the dungeon. It was Isabella Lune Greenwich, the head of the Countess house, a 9th level holy knight. She thought about the fact that most of the time, an attack-type profession was either a warrior or a martial artist, that she had never heard of anyone other than her also having a holy knight, and in games, it wasn't something like a high-level profession. Isabella thought that all she had managed to notice so far was that her stats were increasing faster than those of the same warriors and martial artists. She stood with sword and shield in hand. The team descended into the dungeon on the grounds of the county of Crinwich to the ground floor. There they were greeted by slimes. The boy said that the slimes looked even cute lately. The girl told the others not to relax. The other one agreed. The guy said that they had, after all, slayed them all cleanly yesterday and it was weird. Isabella told them to concentrate. She told the warriors to come forward and attack, and the others to cover the rear and keep an eye on the situation. A boy rushed forward to attack. One girl used a heal and the other a fireball. The guy said he wondered where they were coming from after all. The countess shouted for everyone to look back. There was a slime, which she quickly attacked with her sword, shattering the core. The boy said he was most grateful. The girl said that the countess was beautiful. The one replied that it was likely that the monsters were stuck in a time paradox, but with all the resources and experience, it was even advantageous for them. The girl said that there's also a location change here, straight up real game. The guy said about professions, levels, skill pumping. Isabella agreed. She told them to be careful, and that unlike the game here you can really get hurt. As they approached the stairs, she said that as soon as everyone was ready, they would begin their descent to the first floor. A girl said she couldn't stand goblins. Another said that they were forever hunting down female adventurers. Suddenly a goblin was right behind her. He tried to pull her dress off, but she screamed loudly and fought him off. The girl used a fireball and shouted for him to receive. The monster was defeated. Isabella said it was amazing that she was able to single-handedly defeat the goblin and her diligence in pumping up the level was not wasted. She said that they had MP potions and Ta should remember to use them. The girl agreed. She said that MP potions were expensive. The other said that in the books the goblins are quite small, but in reality they are almost the size of a human and she doesn't even want to go near them. The countess agreed. She said she would clear a path for them all the way to the first floor exit. A multitude of goblins were approaching the team. Isabella moved quickly, swinging her sword. The monsters continued to approach. The boy said badly and they joined the group. The girl asked if it was because of the noise of her magic. Another guy shouted for the others not to let themselves be surrounded, that they should protect the countess. She continued to attack. The girl asked if the lads should protect the countess instead of the other way around. One of them said that the one was strong and he didn't even have time to blink. The girl said that at least she could help the countess, that even her reserves of physical strength were not infinite and she needed her healing. The boys shouted that they too were useful and would help. They were out of breath but the battle was over. The girl said that now it was time for her healing magic. But no sooner had she finished speaking than Isabella healed the lad. The one thanked her. The other asked her to heal him too. The girl was shocked. The countess said that with her level up, she had gained the healing skill and would now help her with healing. The other girl laughed nervously. The other girl told her to score. Isabella thanked the team for their efforts and said that they had done well. Standing in front of a huge pile, she said that these were the fruits of their today's run, that there was magic and iron ore, loot, and materials from monsters. Everyone was surprised. The chap said the countess's vault has an amazing capacity. Ta said she thought the government would buy it all for about £100,000 and it was a pity they hadn't found a scout, then the sum would have gone up to 1 million. She said that after the sale and deducting the money for their expenses, the remaining amount would be divided amongst all the members of the party. Everyone thanked her. Suddenly someone approached them and asked them to wait. An older man asked Isabella if she had forgotten anything. With him was a young guy who asked why the girl was wearing such a shameless outfit. The Ta asked if Duke Grosvenor and Vicott and Wyatt had decided to honor them with their attention. The Duke said that House Crinwich was the sole owner of the dungeon, but it only happened with the permission of House Grosvenor, the original owner. Guy said that in such an outfit she only disgraced the family's honor and he would take a closer look. The Countess replied that she understood. She asked what they wanted in such a case. Grosvenor said he wanted 50%. The girl was puzzled. He said that if they would give him 50% of what they found in the dungeon, he would so and so turn a blind eye to everything. The team was surprised at such a request for half of everything. Isabella said that she was willing to give them her own share, but they could not expect more because each of the members of the party had risked their lives. They could not reduce the reward. She was glad she had succeeded in telling him that. She asked if they knew that the number of dead and missing in the dungeon had already passed 100,000. The girl said that it was such a dangerous place that even she could not handle its management on her own, that she was already in talks with the government about handing over the management of the dungeon. The man shouted asking if she did not realize that the dungeon was a goose laying golden eggs. He said she said it was dangerous, but then what did they need the adventurers' marks for? He said for them to raise their level and continue to conquer the dungeon. The guy said to examine Countess Isabella's cleavage. The girl apologized and said that one level up doesn't solve everything, only if the level is high enough to reach the lowest floor of the dungeon alone. The Duke asked again about the lowest floor. He said that unless he was mistaken, the world record at the moment was the 8th floor, and there was no fool in the world who would go into the dungeon alone. He told her not to give examples out of thin air. The man thought about the fact that Isabella has level 9 and her intelligence has increased significantly, then perhaps she can see further than them. He pondered how reasonable it was then to set up a private company running the dungeon and intercept the monopoly from the hands of the government. The Duke said they were done for the day, and that they should not forget to add his £50,000 tip to the distribution. The lad shouted to his grandfather that he had promised him an inspection of his clothes. The girl turned to the Countess. The latter thought of what it meant that as long as she remained in England, she would be a perpetual prisoner of the cage created by the Duke. In Japan, Tokyo, Reggie sneezed loudly. He, eating ice cream, realized he was sneezing non-stop. The boy assumed that he had caught a cold. He thought about the fact that he had never been sick after pumping a level, and perhaps he had been too relaxed. Just in case, he decided to use reinforcement and healing. The hero said that he was now fully cured. He said that it was time to sweep the UNO Park dungeon. The hero used invisibility and teleport. He ended up in the UNO Park dungeon, where he used stealth, running through the floors. Walking on the 999th floor, Reggie thought about the fact that he had thoroughly checked each of the floors so far to make sure. But it seems this is indeed the Demon King's dungeon, and in the other world it was the most dangerous and deepest dungeon. He thought about the fact that the next floor would be the 1000th floor, and in the other world this floor was where the Demon King dwelt. As he descended lower, the boy thought that he didn't understand what was going on here. He had only fought the Demon King once, but the detection skill was confusing him. The skill showed that the one down there was clearly not the Demon King. Reggie realized that it was a dragon of pitch darkness. He thought about the fact that this was the first time he was seeing him, and he was the boss of this dungeon. The boy, pulling a sword from the vault, thought about which was stronger, the dragon of darkness or the sword of love. He used acceleration and quickly dashed towards the dragon's tail. The one ran forward. The hero thought that this was incredible speed for his size, also strong scales. He thought it was a good thing he had taken the sword he had used to kill the Demon King. The dragon's tail was severed. The dragon looked back in surprise. Reggie was surprised that it only now noticed that its tail had been chopped off. The dragon of darkness screamed and tried to take off, but he was not very good at it. It landed on the ground. The hero thought that with the tail he had lost weight, and now he could not balance properly in flight, and now the battle in the air could be forgotten. The dragon began to release balls from its mouth, which flew towards Reggie. He deftly maneuvered and swung his sword, and then used ice arrows. He thought that if compared purely in terms of firepower, the dragon would be stronger than the Demon King. Suddenly, the orbs began to change their trajectory in flight, and one flew towards the hero from behind. He thought that the dragon had attacked from a blind spot. There was a small explosion. The boy fell to the ground. He realized that the dragon had hit. Thoth looked pleased. He began to recite a spell that summoned a meteorite. It started to fall from above on the place where Reggie was. Thoth realized it was a meteorite. He deftly pierced the dragon's mouth, thinking that the dragon had fallen for his trick. He thought that he had plenty of tricks of his own after all, that he would have a little longer fun, but that would do. The boy thought it was a good thing he could cancel meteorites, and it saved him. Suddenly, the hero noticed that his level was going up. He said that he had leveled up another 12 levels, and he didn't expect anything less from the dungeon boss. Looking at his hand, he realized that the level marker hadn't changed. It was still level 1. Reggie said that the corpse of the Dragon of Darkness was huge in itself, and that it was a lot of awesome items, but he wouldn't be able to take that much home at once. He realized that if he left them here for 24 hours, everything would be swallowed up by the dungeon, and that would be a loss. Looking around, the boy said that the more important thing must be here somewhere. He found the core of the dungeon. The hero said that with the dungeon core, one could move freely through all its floors, that it was an extremely useful item if one needed to gather certain materials or pump up a level. The boy said that he still had the core from the king's dungeon that was in the other world, but in this dungeon it was completely useless and it was inconvenient, so he would advance faster with this. He thought that perhaps other dungeons had also formed new cores and it was a humor. Reggie thought about the fact that his main problem right now was the loot and materials from the Black Dragon, and what he would spend them on would be thought about later. He decided that he would take as much as he could, since he couldn't carry everything. There was already a lot of stuff in his storage. The boy looked at the empty dungeon in surprise. He realized that everything had gone in, and if you think about it that way, he had never filled the vault to the brim. The hero thought about the fact that he was able to see for himself and it was time to carry out his plan. He thought that all in the name of world peace, where he would be able to watch his favorite anime at any moment. After teleporting home, he said he was back. Lying in bed, Reggie thought that before Kiko became adventurous, he should put this plan into action. On his desk, his computer and the parts to assemble the drone remained switched on. The next day, Kiko wished the hero a good morning. She said that she had confirmed that 100 dungeons had already been found in Japan and asked if Reggie had been watching TV. He wished her good morning too and asked what her hair was. The girl confusedly asked if he was talking about her hair and added that Kei said she looked cuter that way. The hero interjected. Kiko said that it's only rumors, but it said that the local dungeon overflowed with monsters and they came out. The government quickly mobilized a self-defense force and cleared the dungeon in no time, but casualties were not few, both military and civilians. She said she wondered if this was true. The hero replied that it was obviously false, and if it were, the city would be like a raging beehive. The girl said he was right, but asked if it would be too dangerous to live if monsters started breeding outside the dungeons. She said that humanity might come to an end after such a. She said that maybe one of the ancient civilizations was also destroyed after the dungeons appeared and monsters escaped from there. Reggie asked where that information came from. Kiko said that it was written about it in the Mumu Monthly. The boy replied that it was on the most reliable source. They met Keiya on the way, who said hello to the girl. The latter wished him a good morning. He embarrassedly responded in kind. Kiko asked, then he waited for her. The hero thought about the fact that this guy is a level 1 hunter and his name is Ito. That guy told the girl that her hair was very nice. She thanked him. He asked her to go. She agreed and told Reggie that they would see each other. The hero didn't realize what this mixed feeling inside him was. Reggie walked down the street and thought that maybe he was in love with Kiko. He decided that it couldn't be. The boy looked at how cute Ito and Kiko were chatting. The girl was embarrassed and blushed a little. The hero looked at her sadly. He thought for a moment and then suggested that maybe this is how fathers feel when their daughters are introduced to their boyfriends. The boy concluded that Kiko was like a family member to him. That's why he was worried about her, and now, realizing the reason, he felt much better. So he came to school. At recess, the guy turned to the hero and asked if he had watched the news. He said that another dearth of false information about dungeon takeover tactics had been announced. The hero was surprised and said there were more and more of them lately. The boy said the victim was lucky that he was able to get out of the dungeon alive and file a police report, but he thinks the death toll from such a thing is much higher. Reggie asked why they even fall for these false strategies. The guy replied that it's a mystery and they say the most naive fall for this scam. He said that Mitsuhashi and Ito were found to have adventurers' marks, and perhaps they too might want to explore dungeons based on the strategies in the video, and if that's the case, they're screwed. The hero realized that it was about Kiko and said he would retire to the bathroom. The boy replied that he understood and would tell the teacher so he could take his time. Reggie stood in the toilet and thought about the fact that he was curious about the videos too, so he watched them, but none of them were even a little bit right. He didn't understand why lie, after all, not to say they had any particular motivation. He thought something should be done about it anyway and opened the vault. From the vault he took out his clone. Reggie said that even though they were one and the same, he was glad the one was okay. The clone agreed. The hero thought about it being a fake puppet. He thought it was a tool that takes on the attacks of opponents, and naturally it looks like him, so they are almost indistinguishable. The boy thought that it was a consumable tool that was enough for one day, and it needed a lot of resources, so he didn't use it much in the other world. Yesterday he made it for the first time in a long time. He thought that with such similarities, no one would notice if he started going to class instead. Reggie told the clone that he was counting on him and by the end of the class he would come back and get him. The one agreed. The hero used teleportation and returned home. The ticket was booked, the seat selected, and the payment online. The boy clicked to confirm. He stood in front of the pictures of his mom and dad. He apologized to them and told them that he would have to use their money for more than just living expenses. The hero said that he seemed to have everything and could go. He almost used the teleporter as he suddenly realized that he had almost forgotten an important thing. He now used teleportation and found himself in the Haneda airport toilet. Reggie switched off the invisibility. He remembered that he had accompanied his father to this airport. In the toilet, the man looked at the man in surprise, thinking that he thought there was no one here but him. The hero thought about the fact that teleport and invisibility are really very handy skills. As he approached the registration, he thought about the fact that this was his first flight, making his heart pound. He pondered the fact that it was about to be the first inspection and what they do if the gate rings. He thought that he should have used the money his uncles had squandered, and yet he is not a champion of justice. Reggie checked in and walked onto the plane, thinking that his place should be here. The plane took off. The hero thought that flying without using magic was awesome. He landed in Kuchai and got on a bus. He reached Katsurahama. The boy cheerfully said that now he would be able to get here by teleportation. The queue to the dungeon was huge, whispering and clamoring could be heard from there. The hero didn't think there were so many people here. Going down to the dungeon, the guy said he was tired of slimes and suggested going down to the first floor. The girl disagreed and said they were having a reconnaissance. The guy replied that it was fine, that he was researching information about strategies from the internet. The other guy asked if that was his normals. Reggie, using invisibility, came down behind them. He thought that guy was one of those who believed in such things. After looking around, he realized that there was no one nearby and used detection. Just as he thought, this dungeon also matched the one he had passed in the other world. The boy used the vault and took out a device from it. It was a homemade golem drone and a highly sensitive camera built into it. The hero thought back to Daenerys, who talked about magic. He thought about the fact that you can't use electronics in a dungeon, so he redesigned the camera with magic. He thought that learning the basics of magical engineering as part of his hero training was helpful. Reggie thought that if he could modify the drones easily, he could start mass production, but they needed rare metals and ingredients to make them, so he had only made 4 pieces so far. The hero thought it would be a problem if other adventurers saw them, so he made the drones invisible. He realized that invisibility burns out his MP, but when the level is above 14.0, this cost is hardly noticeable. Reggie changed his clothes to a new suit with a cloak. He thought he was all set and decided to start shooting from where he had descended into the dungeon. He realized that he had almost forgotten the most important thing. At this time at school, a guy turned to Furuya's clone and said that he was somehow different today. The clone asked in surprise if that was true. The guy said that the one was somehow slightly different from his usual self. The doll wondered. He said the thing was that he was a fake doll created with high-level magical engineering. The boy said that it was good old Furuya and that it was a relief. In the Katsurahama dungeon, at the entrance to the ground floor, Reggie thought everything looked cool. He put a mask on himself. He was being filmed by drones in stealth mode. The hero coughed. He said that he welcomed everyone, that the Dungeon Exploration channel was with them. The boy thought it sounded too corny. He said that he welcomed everyone, that the Dungeon Exploration channel was with them, that they would map out the first and second floors of the Katsurahama dungeon today. He thought about how he was very nervous, that fighting the Demon King was less nerve-wracking. Reggie said that in the next video they would make up tactics for fighting monsters and suggested that they all work out how to fight against different types of monsters together. He thought the more he tried to keep his cool, the more he stammered. He didn't understand what was wrong. An hour passed. The hero said he would leave a link to the PDF file under the video, and future videos would have the same notes, so you have to remember to check the description. He said he was finally done and it took him about 30 takes just for the opening part. The girl from the adventurous team asked what was in it. The guy told everyone to keep their eyes open. Reggie said they were on the ground floor now and offered to look around. He said that right near the entrance were some great hunting rifles, and right now 3 groups of adventurers were already fighting slimes. He said that the more adventurers in a party, the lower the personal earnings, but you can always count on the support of your mates. The boy said that you won't need money in the other world, so you should always prioritize your safety. He thought that he was beginning to get used to it little by little. The hero said that he would recommend hunting near this passage, but be careful as there would be 2 slimes waiting along the way. He said that there was a treasure chest located in this small room, that the room was easy to miss, so you must remember to look in here if you pass by. The boy offered to open it and said that if there was a scout there, one could be quickly enriched. He said that there was a potion inside, that the scout was rare and usually found in purple chests, that in 24 hours a new chest would appear in this place, so you just had to be patient. The hero said that if you step on this slab, a trap will activate and it's a different color, so it's easy to spot. Suddenly a dart flew at his head. Reggie was tense. He said that everything felt different in a helmet, which was the reason he had fallen into the trap, but they were usually avoided, and for that matter, he would never have stepped on it in a normal situation. The boy said he did it to make things easier for everyone to understand. He said that they had gone round the whole of the ground floor, which meant it was time to go down to the second floor, that the stairs in the dungeon were steep and narrow, so you had to be careful when going down. Reggie said that the first floor is inhabited by goblins that are a bit stronger than slimes, and if one doesn't have the adventurer tag, there's a good chance they'll kill him, so it's best not to go down there. He didn't have time to say anything, as he flew down the stairs screaming. That's how he ended up on the first floor. The hero said that, like he said, the stairs are a dangerous place and the way he fell, but the rest of us should still be careful. Suddenly he saw a girl screaming for help. She was being chased by goblins. The boy released 2 fireballs that flew behind her back and hit the goblins directly. They were dead. Reggie asked the girl if she was okay. He thought she was very pretty. She thanked him and told him that her friend had been captured by the goblins. The hero said he would save her friends too. He used detection and realized which room they were in and then ran forward. The girl was shocked at how fast he did it. The boy shouted that he had come to help. There was a bound man sitting on the floor. He rejoiced and asked to be rescued. Reggie was surprised that the girl's friend was a man, also an old man of some sort. He thought the dungeon couple was none of his business and used magic. The hero remembered Ito suggesting Kiko to explore the dungeons together after graduation, which made him very angry and released a powerful fireball. It made a huge tunnel into the dungeon, collapsing the walls. The boy was surprised. He thought it had been 10 years since he had messed around with spell power. After using detection, he realized that the fireball hadn't hit any adventurers. The man thanked the hero for saving him. He asked what kind of magic it was just now, adding that it was the first time he had seen such destructive potential. Reggie said it was a powerful version of a fireball, that he thought it could even be called a fire cannon. The man said that he was certainly asking for help, but asked if it was overkill. The hero was surprised. The old man said he understood wanting to practice strong magic. He asked what they would do if the ceiling collapsed and asked him to untie it faster. The boy didn't understand why that sounded like a moralizing. He said that the fireball had not hit any people, and yes, by tomorrow the place would be completely rebuilt. Yiko came in, calling the man Ken. The man shouted cheerfully to her. The boy said that they were still too low level for the first floor and it was better for them to start by rolling slimes from the first floor. He said that if he wasn't here, the two of them would be dead by now. Ken told him to shut up, that they were just letting their guard down a bit. He asked what kind of boy was lecturing them here. Reggie was puzzled. As he left, Ken said that seriously, sometimes these troubled boys show up here. He asked if he was right. Yiko agreed and said to just ignore the boy. The man was surprised that they were staying on the first floor. He thought that at this rate he would have to keep an eye on them all the time. The hero thought that this way he wouldn't map and it was time to retreat, then he used invisibility and stealth. He thought it might be worth giving these two a warning. He remembered Denarius' words that in the dungeon, Reggie was primarily responsible for himself and it would be foolish for him to die because of other people's advice. She had said that she wasn't perfect either, so he was within his rights not to follow her advice if he thought it was wrong. With the help of invisibility, the hero slipped out of the dungeon. He reached a place where there was no one and thought he would do well here. He teleported home. The boy, lying on his bed, said that there was still time before the end of class, that tomorrow we should conquer the first floor and find a place to film the dungeon. He said that based on today's experience, he can safely go through one dungeon on a weekday, and on weekends he can go through 2 dungeons at once, making 40 dungeons a month, so that in 3 months he can film the first and second floors of all the dungeons in Japan. Reggie said that he was lucky and the filming would end before his high school graduation. He thought about the fact that there is a problem with editing and the quickest thing to do would be to cut the video, put the right pieces together and add subtitles, but he wants to make a classy video and should look for tutorials. The boy saw that his favorite seiyuu had released a new vidisic and said he should watch. At this time his doll was in shock. The boy asked the hero clone what he had for lunch. The guy replied that he wasn't hungry. Guy then suggested that we eat together. He said that he would share his lunch, that he had some yakisoba bread and a bean paste bun here. The clone said that the fellow was a nice guy, calling him a bespectacled guy. The one was surprised and asked if Reggie had forgotten that his name was Yamada. The clone thanked him and said he would remember until the day he died about the time he shared a bun with him. Yamada cheerfully said that the latter was exaggerating. They were friends after all, even more like brothers in spirit. Doll covered his eyes with his hand. The boy asked what was wrong with him. The hero clone replied that something got in his eye. Yeko screamed asking to be saved. She shouted for the goblins to stay away, asking for Kan's help. The goblins, licking their eyes, looked at her. Kan shouted for them to take their hands away from her, but a goblin slapped him across the face. The goblins were already reaching for the girl. She was screaming that they were ugly, that Kan shouldn't be watching. Suddenly someone used freeze and the monsters froze. It was Reggie wearing a mask. He said that as long as the freeze was in effect, the goblins wouldn't move. He was curious, so he came. He asked for a couple to use the moments and run away. Kan shouted that they were saved, asked him to untie the rope. Yiko shouted that it was a mysterious mask. The hero used the wind cut, freeing them. The girl thanked him. She and Kan hugged each other. The old man shouted joyfully that she was in one piece. He turned to the hero and said that this was the second time he had rescued them. Kan thanked him and apologized for scoring his advice back then. Echo said that if it wasn't for him, they would have been killed by now. Reggie said that he helped them of his own free will and no thanks were needed, but asked why they were so persistent in going to the first floor despite their low level. Kan said it was all because of the video conquering the first floor at low levels, which was on a paid subscription. Neko agreed. She said that the blogger there kept saying that he didn't really want to talk about it, that only a select few knew about it, and so on. She said it seemed like it was all bullshit. Reggie reflected on this. The hero woke Proto 1, calling him his faithful servant. He was glad that everything worked, then said that he had built in a magical device to lighten the weight so that no sudden movements could be made. He asked Proto 1 if he understood him. The robot quickly rose up, hitting Reggie on the head. The latter shouted, asking why he stood up so abruptly. He shouted that if someone else had been in his place, Proto would have smashed his head in. The man replied that he thought it was a normal custom. The boy asked in surprise who had taught him such a thing, and then realized it was him. The robot said that his body felt very light. The hero replied that he said he had lightened his weight. He told Proto not to dare to switch off the device or else he would break through his floor. The one replied that he understood and would break the floor right now. Reggie shouted that he didn't have to. He said he would explain it to him briefly. The boy said that he had defeated the Demon King and returned to his original world, and they were now in the world where he came from. He said that dungeons from another world had started appearing here, and the world's resources had dried up, so they had to go down to the dungeons for new ones, with many adventurers already falling victim to false information about the dungeons. The robot looked at him. The hero said that was why he wanted to record his videos with accurate information and stop the lies at the root, that if their civilization degenerated, he wouldn't be able to watch anime in peace. The boy asked Proto if he agreed with him. The one asked what his job was, to help with monster hunting in the dungeons. Reggie said that he wanted the latter to help him with editing the video, and that he would never take him with him in the dungeon. The robot asked if that was all because he was useless in the dungeon. The boy replied that it was not, and that in the upper levels that excellent helper. Proto was surprised. The hero said that it did not mean that he would take him with him, that if anyone saw him, they would not be in trouble, for in this world no one knows about golems. Toth became sad. The boy thought about how he wouldn't take him with him even if he made a sad face, and it would be sad if he was broken by mistake. He said that he edited the first video, and to have the robot use it as a template to edit the next ones. Toth replied that he listened, then asked how to edit the videos. Reggie told him to try looking on the internet, adding that he had learnt that way himself. He said that he would teach him how to use the computer. Proto asked in surprise about the computer and whether it was something like a golem specializing in gathering information. The boy pointed to the mouse and keyboard. He said those were mostly what he needed to learn how to use. The robot said he understood everything. Something occurred to the hero. He told him not to dare open the OTKR folder and asked if he understood it. The boy thought the matter was bad. Proto replied that he understood, after which he went into the computer. Reggie was horrified and knocked the robot out. He woke Proto 1 up again, the latter got up. The robot said it seemed to have had an arbitrary shutdown. The hero said that the one cannot worry because he was the one who temporarily knocked him out. He said that he used teleportation to buy a laptop in Akihabara, and that all the files had already been transferred there so he could use it freely. Proto noticed that the OTKR folder was missing. He said that it contained a bunch of pictures of beauties with different skin colors. The boy was embarrassed and shouted that he had forgotten to erase his memory. He said that he went to film a dungeon in Ueno Park so the robot should watch and edit the available videos. He apologized and said that he had his memory erased. Proto replied that he understood. The hero asked if he had any questions. The robot said that the master wanted to meet his family after all. He asked if he had succeeded. The boy immediately changed his face and became sad. He replied that he had succeeded. Proto said that it was glorious. The hero thought for a moment. The robot said the one looked a little sad. Reggie asked him not to bring it up, the latter obeyed. The hero teleported to the underground of Ueno Park. He thought about the fact that if one compared the dungeons that appeared in this world, Ueno Park's dungeon could be called the largest. He thought that this was where most adventurers went, that he had filmed everything up to the 4th floor and it wouldn't be unreasonable to make videos all the way up to the 20th floor. While on the 5th floor with the bees, the boy thought about how he was getting completely used to the helmet and maybe today he could get a smoother video. He thought that if they were talking about just overpowering the monster, then it wasn't that hard. But if there was a desire to not damage the materials, then you had to hit in such a way as to leave the minimum amount of injury. Looking at the sting of the bee, the hero thought that in order to do so, one must be aware of all the monster's weaknesses and strike precisely at the target. He shouted for the monsters to bite out and used a wind cut on 6 bees. They were defeated. The boy thought it was all set, that the crazy bees had weak joints and were easy to cut. Reggie said that he had sorted out the problem and now all that was left was to record an explanatory video and make a map. He wondered how Proto 1 was doing. The hero thought about how Proto Y was his first golem that he had created in the other world. He surmised that usually wizards, after improving their skills, would destroy old golems and start creating new ones. The boy thought that the sentimentality inherent in the Japanese had kicked in and he was spending all his free time improving Proto 1. He thought about how his improvements had humanized the golem, that Proto 1 was so versatile that he could trust it with most of his chores. Reggie remembered that in the other world, Proto 1 was responsible for all the household chores. He thought that they had been living together for so long that he had grown attached to him and in a sense he had become his mate, if not a member of the family. The hero thought that he had awakened Proto 1 in this world to help him with editing the video, but it was more than that. He took off his mask, thinking that he had taken the golem into this world so that he wouldn't be alone. The boy stood in the middle of the dungeon. After teleporting home, he said that he had returned. He asked Proto 1 how things were going with the installation. The latter replied that 18 videos were ready and he wanted Reggie to check. The hero was very surprised that he had made as many as 18 videos. He said it would take about 15 minutes to process one video and asked how long it took the golem. He asked if it was 4.5 hours, adding that at double speed it would take 2+ hours. Proto replied that he wasn't doing anything while he waited for the processing, so he wanted the equipment for mounting. The boy replied that if they could make money from the videos, he would buy the equipment. As he watched the video, he asked why there were a lot of bad takes. Golem replied that he did it intentionally, that according to his research, it would help the character get closer to the audience by humanizing his image. Toth replied that it was fine as it was, then asked to keep all the moments where he looked cool. Proto asked again, then replied that he understood. The hero yelled for him not to react as if he wasn't cool at all. He thought about how Proto 1 was much more fun to be with. It was February, the day of the adventurous school entrance exams. The hero went to Kiko's house. He was greeted by her mother and told that if he was for Kiko, she had already left. Reggie was surprised. The woman said that she thought they had agreed to go together and asked if they had accidentally quarreled. She thought that the hero was very cute in his sleep, then wished him a good journey and good luck in the exam. The boy was sitting in the class of the adventurous high school where the exam was held. He thought about the fact that he hadn't been too eager to enter the adventurous school at first. But when he found out that this school allowed him to skip classes for dungeon diving, he became more motivated. Reggie decided that he needed to take these exams seriously and pass them. After the exam, Ito told Kiko to stop chatting with Furuya. The latter asked in surprise why. He said that after all, she wouldn't be able to refuse him if he asked to join their party, then asked if that was the case. He said that he didn't have a profession so he wouldn't be able to contribute anything to the party, that they were already risking their lives and he didn't want Furuya clinging to them like a parasite and cutting their share from the outings. He said that besides, if the latter was with them, they would never be able to match the other party. The girl replied that it seems like he was right, that Furuya is a nice guy but it was too risky. The hero approached them. He thought about the fact that as his level increased, his hearing also improved and he could hear their whispers too. Ito asked Kiko if she was going home afterwards. The girl answered in the affirmative. Reggie thought about the fact that still these two had never been to the dungeon before, and they were already discriminating against people by profession. He thought that his level and lack of profession was a simple mistake, but he was too lazy to explain it to them. Kiko noticed him. She congratulated him on his return and asked him how his exam was. That one showed that it was okay. Ito called out to the girl. She apologized to him. She said she would go look round the school with Kei and that she and Reggie would see each other again. The latter agreed, thinking that soon all misunderstandings would be cleared up anyway. He watched the couple hold hands. The boy thought about the fact that he should look around and go home too, that he wanted to find a convenient place to teleport. March came. At the graduation ceremony, Reggie's tears were flowing. Yamada told him that they would be friends forever. He agreed. The hero thought about the fact that according to the law, children are not allowed to enter the dungeon until they graduate from high school, and for the same reason, many will rush into the dungeon right after graduation. He thought that Kiko would go into the dungeon with Kei. There was no doubt about it, he didn't want his best friend to die because of false information. On the 31st of March, Reggie looked at his watch. He thought about the fact that even though they had already had their graduation ceremony, but up until the 31st of March, they were officially still high school students, and there were 15 seconds left before the ban was lifted. It was the 1st of April. The hero shouted to Proto 1 to post the video. The latter replied that he was listening. He said that the Dungeon Exploration channel was starting its activities. At the end of March, a group of adventurers came to the dungeon of Ueno Park. One guy shouted that it was their prey and the others should keep their hands off. Another shouted that he didn't know anything, and whoever spotted it first was the booty. The one replied that no one would follow such a silly rule. The fellow, looking at them, said to Kunimi that it looked like this hunting ground was overcrowded too. The man replied that they wouldn't make a penny that way. The boss asked what they should do. The guy offered to go out and come back here at another time. They sat down at the exit. Kunimi said that now not only downsized employees like them or AWOLs go to the dungeons, but also young people who can't find jobs because of the shortage in the labor market. The boss was surprised. He said that a slime could be killed without even having the adventurer's tag and still earn higher than a simple office worker. The guy replied that except that with this influx, they would no longer be able to earn like they used to. The boss asked if there were any good grounds deep in the floors. Kunimi said that no one knows, but it would be fine if they had reliable information about the dungeons. But alas, there is only false information floating around the internet now, and it seems that there are still a lot of people who believe in these fakes and are getting hurt. The boss replied that it is true that many of them don't come back from the dungeons at all. The team of girls were walking through the dungeon with torches. Sarah spotted a passage that wasn't talked about in the video. At that time there was a monster behind her. The second girl shouted to her that there was a slime behind her. Sarah was grabbed by the slime. She screamed and asked Tara to save her. The one running away screamed that it wouldn't work and apologized. The guy sat at his computer and read the comments. Most of them were negative. Even Tara wrote that it was his fault that Sarah died. The girl said that lately the negative comments were only getting more. The guy replied that they were annoying him and he would have to delete it all. Later, he was summoned to the Central Police Department. The man shouted that people are dying in packs because of people like him in their videos. He asked what his brain was even thinking. The guy asked not to yell like that. He asked if he was so much to blame, adding that it is stated everywhere that the information obtained is used at people's risk. His lawyer told the detective to ask all questions to him first. He asked if there was evidence that it was his client who was guilty of spreading false information, if they had compared his video with the actual dungeon layout before making the video. He said that if they did not stop this lawlessness, they would sue him for defamation. The detective was angry. He wished he had a video of the dungeon footage. At Takanasu TV, the man said that if they got video of the dungeon from inside, it would be a gold mine. He told the guys to film anything, that even the smallest scrap would do. The guy replied that it was impossible because electronics don't work inside the dungeons. The man asked if he had thought of crossing his superiors. He said that it was their job so they should solve the problem too, that if there was no video there would be no contract renewal. The guy said that this is nonsense and the boss just found an excuse to break the contract with them. The other said that in such a desperate situation they have only one thing to do. The one asked if he thought that was too dodgy a way to go about it. The fellow said that they would go to rock bottom one way or another and he hoped that it would make them rich, that they would sell the footage to the studio that would offer the highest price. In the underground of Ueno Park, on the ground floor, a guy asked a friend if the camera was working. The guy shouted that nothing worked, that it was a dungeon camera developed by NASA. The guy said that's what he said and then asked how much the guy had given for it. The guy replied that it was $1,000,000 yen and he even took a loan. He said it was bad as he had not even been paid his severance pay. The guy replied that they could sell that camera to someone else. On the 1st of April at Proto One said that the Dungeon Exploration channel was starting. Reggie was glowing with happiness. He said it was awesome, and over 100 videos were posted in one press of the enter button. Golem replied that that wasn't quite true. He said that he had installed a scheduling program in Medube and the videos were posted without any interference. Reggie was very surprised that the man had laid it out in advance. He asked why it mattered and whether the latter was not excited by the event itself. In the video, he greeted everyone and said that the Dungeon Exploration channel was with them. The boy thought this was the real beginning of his channel. In Takashi's video studio, the boy shouted to the supervisor that the matter was bad and to take a look at it. The man, seeing the video, shouted in surprise that it was footage from the dungeon. He was surprised that it was for real, but he didn't see any signs of CG. He said it was definitely not fake and asked how he did it. The guy offered to borrow the equipment from this guy and then return it. The supervisor said he thought about it for a long time, but the guy is optimistic. The guy shouted to Mr. Yama that a video was published straight from the dungeon. The guy asked how he knew it wasn't another fake. The guy said it looked plausible and offered to take a look. Yama shouted that he needed to back up and asked him to print out frames 50 from the video. Guy agreed to do so. He said it was the frame at the entrance itself, so they would go there and compare everything. At Roppongi, everyone was discussing the video. Someone asked what all the fuss was about. The guy answered him that he didn't know, but he heard that they posted a video about dungeons. He was asked if it was the same video, adding that it had been many times before. A guy was sitting at his computer talking to a friend on the phone. He asked if the other had watched it yet and asked to see it. He said it was a real dungeon so we should meet and talk things over. He would send the address. The talk and discussion did not stop. On the breaking news, the reporter said that it was breaking news and there was currently a network failure all over the country. Reggie sat at his computer. He was very happy that the number of views and subscribers were increasing like a tremendous amount. Proto One said that it was all thanks to his fine editing sense and not to be thanked. The boy agreed and thanked him. Golem asked if the man was joking. He said that the hero knew which points to press and he wouldn't hold back that way after all. The boy said he was pleased to see the number of views and subscribers growing. Suddenly he realized he couldn't read the comments. Proto One replied that the network was overloaded. Reggie became very upset. He asked how this happened, adding that this was his Medube debut. The White House discussed that there was a massive network outage across America with no internet or phone service. A man shouted that they were suggesting a cyber attack by another country. The president asked if they had any idea which country was to blame. The man, holding a clipboard, said it might seem like nonsense. The president was puzzled. The man said that worldwide access was mostly to a channel on Medube. Another said that according to NASA's spy program, most phone conversations and emails about the channel. The president asked if they meant to say that the channel was the cause of the glitches and if he should believe that nonsense. He asked who owned the channel. He said in surprise that the account was Japanese and it was a dungeon exploration channel. In the video, Rigi said that today they would learn the ins and outs of slime fighting. The president asked if the video was from a dungeon. The man replied that it was a well-made fake. Thoth asked Linda to take a look at the video, adding that she was America's best adventurer and he wanted her opinion. Thoth had a level 29 and a profession as a gunfighter. The girl agreed with her grandfather. She was Linda Bluestone, who was 15 years old. She picked up the clipboard and said she didn't know how the guy did it, but the video was quite real and she even wondered what his level was. The grandfather thanked her. The man said they requested his location data from this video service. The woman said that the account itself is Japanese and the speech in the video itself is also in Japanese. The man asked if they would report their find to the Japanese government. The president replied that it was not worth revealing their cards. Linda told her grandfather that she would go to the Rocky Mountain dungeon after lunch, so if she could get a camera ready like the guy in the video, she would try to film the dungeon the same way. She left. The president thought Linda had changed plans and went straight to the dungeon, and maybe the man in the video is a much higher level than she is, and Linda hates to lose. He said he wanted them to find equipment that could work inside the dungeon. He asked if they should videotape their methods of taking over dungeons. He was told that these videos could be their potential advantage in negotiations, that from this day forward the world race would begin and they should be faster than other countries. Meanwhile in Japan, Rigi was playing video games with a golem. He shouted that he had lost again, whereupon he banned Proto 1 from using items from his inventory. The latter replied that he understood and ignored the order. The hero said the hell with it and he could use whatever he wanted. Suddenly his phone rang. The boy saw that it was accountant Kijima. He said that Furuya was listening. The woman said that he finally answered, that she was on her way and hoped he would agree to meet her at the family restaurant that is near the railway station. Rigi asked why she was calling so late, adding that she even had time to freak out. Ta replied that it was about Furuya's project. He said he would be there soon. Proto 1 wished him a good journey and said he would take care of the editing for now. The hero was walking down the street and thought that he had opened a company called Furuya Project thinking about his future, and Kajima was his tax accountant whom he had hired at that time. He thought about the fact that at his order Proto 1 had found a good professional who could keep secrets, that his demands were high but he was also paying a lot. He was greeted at the restaurant. The hero noticed that Kajima had not arrived yet. He thought it was the first time he was visiting the family restaurant at night. A woman entered the restaurant, apologizing to Rigi for the delay. The man replied that it was no big deal and he had just arrived himself. She said that was fine then and that she suggested sitting down in a quiet place. The boy noticed sweat on her and surmised that she was in a hurry. The woman apologized for calling him right in the middle of the night and asked if he wanted a snack. The hero replied that he didn't need one. He asked the waitress for a draw bar. She said she would get herself a coffee and asked what about Furuya. He asked for a Coke. The girl went to the cash register. Rigi thought she was being prompt. The drinks were on the table. Kijima said that she would get straight to the point, that in 2 hours the number of subscribers on his channel had passed 300 million, that no one had ever gained that many in the history of the internet, and the number continued to grow steadily. The hero was very surprised. He was very excited. The girl asked to accept her congratulations. She said she wanted to clarify a few details first. She apologized for the question but asked if the videos were real. The boy replied in the affirmative. He thought she wanted to see if he was doing something illegal. Kijima asked if other adventurers were capable of making the same videos. The one replied that it was impossible. He said that he used special materials to remake an ordinary digital camera, that it takes a huge level of about 900 to extract them. Rigi said that in addition, even if they got them, they would need to study magical engineering to know how and where to use them, and that everything he said was a trade secret. The girl listened. He said that even if someone could fulfill those two conditions, few people have the knowledge of dungeons to create such instructional videos. Kijima said he understood everything and could say that he had a complete advantage over all possible competitors. The hero agreed. He thought that it would be different to go to this world and other heroes besides him, but there should be no such thing. The girl said that he had already met all the conditions for monetization, so she thought they would get an approving response and it would take about a week to review their request. She said that even with the crudest of estimates, the annual revenue from the video could reach several billion. Boy said Medub just sent him a monetization notice. Kijima replied that it was fast. Rigi said that speaking of monetization, they wrote that they would give him additional incentive bonuses if he agreed to post videos exclusively on their platform. The girl said that if he had no plans to take over other platforms, she would advise him to sign this exclusivity contract, in which case Medub himself would take care of catching pirates distributing his videos. The boy realized she was talking about pirated copies. He said that it was quite possible and he would sign the contract. He was surprised that they responded so quickly. Rigi said that they had already sent all the documents for signature and according to the contract he would be paid $40 million a year. Kijima was very surprised. She said that this is the big leagues. The character asked again. She was confused and then said that Furuya's project had only recently been launched and at this rate sales promised to be lackluster, so she was thinking of hiring a lawyer and a finance manager for the company. She asked what the hero would say about that. The latter replied that she could act as she saw fit. The girl agreed. She said that in that case she had connections with companies in those areas, so it was possible to outsource some of the work to them. Riji agreed, thinking that this was again operationally. Kijima said that they charge quite a lot for their work, but with the projected sales of the Furuya project could well afford it, there would be no problem, that it was like a stone in the ocean for them. She said that in addition, she could assure him that these companies would honestly admit their mistake if anything. The girl said that the contracts with them would already be signed tomorrow and asked if Riji had any questions. The one asked if she liked cats. Kijima asked back in surprise even though she herself was wearing cat print clothes. The hero pointed to her shirt. She revealed the jacket and blushed. The girl embarrassedly apologized for being in her pajamas all this time. She said that she liked cats even though she didn't have any at home. The boy thought she was clumsy. He said he didn't care and apologized for the question. Riji thought she was in a big hurry. Kijima said she was responsible for his finances so he could feel free to have her cover all the expenses. The hero thanked her for the treat. She at this one asked her to forgive her. The boy thought it was prompt again. The girl started to leave but then turned round. She apologized for allowing the minor to walk alone in the middle of the night with her invitation. She said it was an unacceptable mistake on her part. Kijima said she would escort him home. Riji replied that it was fine and she lived not far away. She replied that it didn't work that way and suggested they head out. The boy pointed in the other direction and said that his home was over there. He thought she was clumsy. They walked down the street together. The girl turned to Furuya and asked if he planned to continue uploading dungeon conquest videos in the future. The hero replied in the affirmative. He said that adventurers who can intelligently collect and distribute their resources sounds like a great idea, that if their civilization starts to degrade, he won't be able to watch anime in peace and money is wanted. Kijima said with a smile that it was a good idea and she sincerely wished him luck. She said that the whole world had been waiting for this knowledge, and who would have thought that a 15-year-old boy would possess it? That one was embarrassed. The girl said that if he had any problems in the future, he could safely turn to her, that she would help him in any way she could. The hero thanked her, thinking that she was a good person. They came to Furuya's house. Kijima bowed and wished the boy good night. He wished her good night too, thinking about what kind of professional moves they were. He was worried that the woman would be alone on the street at night, so he used invisibility and stood by Kijima until her taxi arrived. Riji recalled what had happened about a year before he defeated the Demon King. It was the first battle of a multinational army of humans against an army of demons. The king shouted that this battle would decide the fate of all mankind, that everyone should forget about the strife between the sides, and together they would all raise their blades against the demon army. The hero thought about how excited he was. After all, this was his first battle outside the dungeon. Dinaris told him that she and the soldiers would cover his rear and he should focus on the enemies in front of him. Toth asked in surprise if he couldn't fight behind them. The girl said it was his fight. She said that everything was already decided, and if they made even the slightest mistake, it would all go to waste, because today was Riji's debut as a hero. He moved quickly between the demons, attacking them with his sword, shouting to follow the hero. The one thought about the squad from the neighboring country moving too slowly, and it wouldn't be good if their speed caused their troops to be taken. He dealt with the main enemy forces in about half a day, and so, gaining strength, humanity turned the demon army to flight. On the 2nd of April, Riji and Proto One wished each other a good morning. Golem said that the comments section was getting out of hand, and he would like the hero to handle it himself. Thoth cheerfully asked what was up, a bunch of comments of appreciation and support. Proto One said that the most praised comments are from overseas. Japanese users' comments are half negative. He said that the most common comment is that it is a fake, in second place that the person tried it and succeeded, and in last place that there must be a freak behind the masked guy. The character was very surprised. He sat down at the computer, assuming that he was actually being praised. When he saw the comments, he was shocked. People left a bunch of negative comments. The boy didn't realize what it was. He immediately became sad. Proto One said that there were grateful comments, so he asked not to be sad. Riji said he was fine and that he expected something like this. Golem said he should look at the little tsunder's comment, then he'd cheer up. Thoth replied that he was feeling fine as it was. The girl said that you shouldn't get hung up on just making videos, that they aren't that important after all, and there's nothing good about it at all. The character was very confused and asked if the girl was an angel. Proto One said that the one should be praised more often. The boy said that there was something like that in the other world too. The golem said that the one was right and that the anonymous adverts there were just awful. The boy replied that it wasn't that bad and asked him not to reply anything to the comments. Proto One said he would respond. Reggie thought about when he first debuted as a hero, there was a battle of a multinational army against an army of demons. The princess told him that it was a good job, and that because he took the main forces, the allied army was able to win a crushing victory. She said that now the whole world knows that Reggie is a hero. The one asked if he needed this recognition so much and if defeating the Demon King was not enough. The girl replied that he had a lot of things to do that, including getting the recognition. She said it was time for her to go to the council meeting. The boy said he wasn't sure he fully understood her, but the important thing was that Daenerys was happy. The king told her that she had been through a lot in this battle, that Furia Reggie's success was amazing. She smiled. One of the men said that it was all too strange. He asked if the Demon King's army had lost too quickly, adding that perhaps he had colluded with the Demon King. Another said they suspected the boy was only pretending to be a hero, in which case the princess was also involved. Someone said that to begin with, it should be noted that transferring people from other worlds is simply impossible. Daenerys shouted that there was nothing strange about it, that the reason was because Reggie's level was incredibly high. His limits were different from theirs, and besides, she had received the gift of summoning a hero from the goddess Lunameria herself. People were asking why they couldn't just summon another hero here and now if that was the case. They asked to confess that the hero is just a fiction to raise their credibility in the international alliance, that this Reggie kid scares them. The princess said she didn't care if they were going to insult her but asked them not to vilify Reggie. She tearfully said that he was their savior who risked himself for this world. Some said it was all women, others said they still thought it was too strange. There was one who said he believed her. Some said her tears were only false, and some said they had no proof yet. Daenerys was silent all the way back to the kingdom, and when they finally returned, she locked herself in her room and the plan to subdue the Demon King began to slow down. The boy knocked on her door thinking about how he didn't understand anything. He said he was done with all the dungeons from her plan and asked if he could choose the next dungeon himself. The girl replied that she didn't mind and that she needed to talk to her family and the nobles or else there would be a lot of problems. She apologized to Reggie for causing him problems. The man was surprised and asked if she meant that he hadn't realized anything lately. Daenerys smiled. She said that she thought she should make an effort to save the world as everyone would support her, but it seems that is not the case. The hero was very surprised. He asked what happened. The girl replied that nothing had happened, that she herself did not know why she was sad. The boy wondered. The princess said that she loved this world too much, so she would continue to fight against the Demon King to the end, and Reggie should try his best. The one thought that he wouldn't do anything here. He told the golem that he learnt about everything a little later. The one replied that he recalled something similar, and the princess brought back memories. The boy wondered if Daenerys had felt then what he felt now. He was distracted from his thoughts and asked what they were talking about. Proto One asked if he was crazy after all. The hero asked if they were talking about the comments under the video. Golem said there were too many for him to control, so the boy would have to deal with it himself. He asked if he wanted to leave it the way it was or close the comments section. He said that if they close them there will be no more worries, but on the other hand, that way they won't be able to see the opinion of the subscribers. Reggie replied that he understood and said not to touch anything then. Proto One said that if he left it as it was, he wouldn't have to stress unnecessarily. But on the other hand, the hero would have to see negative comments all the time. Thoth asked in surprise why he kept explaining. The golem said that the matter had to be brought to a conclusion. The boy agreed, thinking it was interesting. Proto One said that there is a note that truly awful comments are blocked by the platform itself as security. Reggie said that it was very clear and that the golem did well. He asked that the comments not be touched. Thoth replied that he felt very refreshed. The hero said that he would go make a video. The golem wished him a happy journey and said that they were running out of material so they should make as many videos as possible. The boy came to the underground of Ueno Park to the 27th floor. He said that the 27th floor was an ordinary maze and the main monsters of the floor were black scorpions. Suddenly, he realized that he forgot his helmet, so he would have to reshoot everything. He said it was a hemorrhoid and got very frustrated. The hero decided he didn't want to do it and would take the day off today. Meanwhile, it was the 3rd of April, 3 days had passed since the Medub debut. Lying on his bed, Reggie said that he wondered if Kiko had watched the clips. Proto One queried whether a childhood friend is. He said that seeing the boy was talked about so much that it would be strange if she hadn't watched them until now. Thoth asked in surprise if it was such big news. Golem said that the hero was being talked about on TV, in newspapers, radio, magazines, and even discussed on anonymous blogs, that the Dungeon Exploration channel had become ubiquitous with the hottest topic. He said that a TV news special was about to start. The boy said we should watch it. The reporter said that about a year ago, dungeons began to form all over the world. At the same time, the Earth's natural resources were drastically depleted. That electricity supplies were also on the decline, that nuclear power and wind power had been attempted, but they could not cope with the required loads. The hero rejoiced that graduation had begun. The reporter said that acute problems with logistics and manufacturing industries have emerged. In addition, due to the depletion of natural resources, infrastructure development has come to a standstill, that many companies have gone bankrupt, causing the economy to deteriorate, and some have begun to foreshadow the inevitable fall of humanity. She said that it was found out that mana stones extracted from monsters could be processed into fuel. This changed the situation dramatically. Moreover, all minerals could also be extracted from dungeons, that the exploration of dungeons became the new hope of mankind. Proto once said that, speaking of which, the Iwaki Industry Company was making great strides in processing mana stones and he would like to buy their shares. The hero interjected about the shares, adding that strange things the one had learned. He said that if the latter was sure he wasn't staying at a disadvantage, he would agree. After all, they had received money for the contract with Medub. The reporter said that to defeat the slimes from the ground floor doesn't even require the adventurer's tag. So many people rush to the dungeons in order to earn money that to survive on the first floor and below, it already requires a tag and a well-pumped level. She said that modern weapons were practically useless against the monsters of the dungeons. Electrical devices did not work there, and that this slowed the pace of exploration, as without modern technology exploration was practically impossible. She said that the monsters themselves are strong, which has led to a large number of deaths and seriously injured explorers, and there are currently about 10 million dead. Proto once said that they don't talk about their channeling at all. The boy added that this is a long explanation. The reporter said that the viewers were facing an interview with dungeon expert Professor Shinohara. An older man appeared on the screen. Rigi was very surprised that it was a dungeon expert. The man said that no one knows as much about dungeons as he does and they underestimate the danger of these places. He said that according to his estimation, even with the resources extracted from the underground, human civilization is bound to degenerate and they are only able to slow down this process. The reporter said that under all these circumstances, just recently a major platform posted videos of correct dungeon exploration strategies, and the source of the videos was the Dungeon Exploration Channel, also known as KPIP. The boy rejoiced that here it is. The girl said that this channel had already posted all the information about the ground floors of more than 100 dungeons in Japan. Detailed information about monsters, accurate maps, that this channel was the first to be able to record a video inside a dungeon. She asked how on earth he managed to do that, adding that they were able to interview KPIP himself. Rigi was shocked. Proto one asked when the one managed to do the interview. The latter replied that he had not given one. The guy in Rigi's suit said hello and said that he was the KPIP. He said he couldn't sit on the sidelines and watch the reduction of humanity, so he made the decision to record the videos. The boy didn't realize who else it was. The boy said it looked like some squishy old man decided he was a dungeon expert and that was just ridiculous. He asked if the one wasn't a rogue, if everyone had seen his decrepit face. The guy said that the guy had probably never even been in a dungeon. The hero thought he agreed. The guy said he would say one more thing, that only KPIP was right. After that, he said goodbye. The reporter said it was all an exclusive interview. Proto one said that this imposter's helmet is just like Rigi's helmet. That one shouted that their design is completely different, that he will not leave it like that and there is no forgiveness to that imposter. He went to Kijima's office where he told her that he wanted to do something about that imposter. The girl replied that she would help him with the matter, but first he should contact Muto's law office, and since the cost of the trial was a definite expense, his taxes would be reduced. She said that she would like to deal with the problem thoroughly so that something like this would not happen again, then asked if Rigi would allow her to do so. The latter asked if it seemed to him or if Kijima was bragging. The girl replied that it didn't seem to him, and that she wouldn't leave them a chance for something like that. The boy said that he would then leave it up to her, thinking that she could be relied upon. She said that before he left, she would like to consult with him on a matter. She asked if he had already seen videos that take advantage of the hype. The hero asked what videos. In one video, a woman was saying that she was a KPIP mom and apologizing for her son causing so much trouble. In another, a man said he was the older brother of a KPIP and apologized for his little one causing so much trouble. In yet another video, a guy said he was a former classmate of KPIP and would talk about his college life. Rigi was very surprised. Kijima said there are other self-proclaimed relatives and friends. She asked permission to clarify whether it was true that he did not know any of them. The hero replied in the affirmative. He said he had only revealed his true identity to her so had no idea who they were. The girl was embarrassed. She said that she would then get busy making sure that no one dared imitate him, that a group would have to be organized to look into the matter from all sides. The boy thought that he could always rely on her. She turned to Furuya and asked if it was possible if he could record a video of him making a formal plea that he was suing for defamation. She said she wanted to nail them to anyone still thinking of profiting from it. Rigi agreed and said he would take it all down and upload it today. Kijima thanked him and apologized for taking up his time with this. The hero disagreed and said he should be the one thanking her. She became embarrassed. The girl asked if the filming of the research video was going well. The boy was surprised and said it was going well. She said that she actually reviewed his videos very often and it was very exciting. Rigi was surprised. Kijima said that she didn't have the adventurer's mark manifested, but watching his videos she feels like one that it makes her incredibly happy. The boy was very happy. The girl said that everyone around her seemed happy too, that they said the hero's videos were helping their fellow adventurers. Ta thanked. She said she was really looking forward to his new videos. This made Rigi feel embarrassed. After a while, he said he was already home. Proto 1 congratulated him on his return. The boy was smiling. Golem said the one looked pleased and asked if anything good had happened. The one answered in the negative and asked what could have happened. He said he would go make the video that Kijima asked him to make. Proto 1 wished him a happy journey. The boy teleported to the dungeon. He thought about the fact that there seemed to be more people, and he would like to record a video in a place where there was no one, that maybe there weren't as many people in the depths. Rigi used detection. He was very surprised to see that there were full of people even in the deepest hunting grounds. The boy wondered if it was because of his video. Suddenly he saw a guy and a girl. Looking closer, he realized it was Kiko and Ito was with her. The hero was surprised that they had a party of only 2 people. He used invisibility and stealth. The girl asked Kei if he was sure everything would be okay. He replied that he was sure because they had studied the video from the Dungeon Exploration channel and bought equipment from Iwaki. He said that if trouble happened, he would protect Kiko. They looked at each other with confusion. Being under invisibility and stealth, from around the corner, Rigi watched them holding hands. He thought he had seen something inappropriate and mentally apologized to Kiko and Ito. The boy thought that they both had adventurer tags and they had watched his video, hence nothing serious should happen, so he would leave them alone. In the video, Rigi said that he planned to sue the imposters pretending to be him and his acquaintances. That today would be just this announcement that viewers can expect the channel's next dungeon exploration videos. The character, angry, shouted that Proto 1 had used failed takes again. The one replied that he did it because it's fun. The day of admission to the adventurer's school had arrived. Kiko rang Rigi's bell. The one shouted out that he was coming, wondering who it could be. He was very surprised to see the girl. She wished him good morning, told him that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and suggested that they go together to find out their results. The hero was surprised. He agreed, but asked why she wasn't with Kei. Kiko said that he cheated on her, so she left him. The boy was surprised and thought about the fact that he was so sweet on her. In the underground, the girl asked if Rigi knew that adventurers are very popular, adding that even at the exit of the dungeon, a bunch of fans are already waiting for them. The one replied that that's how it is. She asked if he had been to the dungeon yet. The hero replied that he was there every day, thinking that he only went in using invisibility. Kiko was puzzled. She asked if he had contacted any former classmates, adding to ask if he would invite anyone to meet. The hero said that he and Yamada communicate through Lime. The girl said that there is something strange about Rigi, something he is not like the adventurers she knows. The one was puzzled. She shouted that he didn't have a profession. The boy said that his profession is not displayed and it could be a normal bug. Kiko smiled and told him not to be discouraged. The hero embarrassedly shouted that he wasn't sad, that there was no need to cheer him up and he didn't like it. The girl asked if he had seen the new Delta release and said that she really liked their handiwork. Rigi replied that he was undecided between the printed exam and the digital one. He thought about how Kiko hadn't changed and he was glad she was doing well. There were people with cameras standing outside the adventurer's school. The girl asked what was there. The hero assumed it was the media. The girl apologized to Kiko. She said they were from the local channel and asked if she could spare a moment. She said she could tell from the uniform that they were students of the adventurer school. Kiko was embarrassed and surprised that they were even approached. The girl asked if she could tell them her level and profession. The one said she was a level 2 warrior. The girl asked what about Rigi. He said that he got level 15-0 yesterday, that raising it from 1490 was a really hard task and even the Dragon of Darkness barely helped, that his profession was hero. The reporters were puzzled. The girl said it was creepy and thanked them for their time. Kiko told the boy that he was in his repertoire as usual. The boy thought that he had told the truth after all. They walked into the school. Kiko said that the classes were assigned according to grades, and that those with the highest grades were assigned to Class A, while those with the worst grades were assigned to Class E. The hero said that he should be in Class A. He went to the class lists and started looking for his surname Furuya. He was puzzled. He wondered what it meant that his name was not in the class. The boy thought about the fact that as his level increases, his intelligence also increases, that he has been seriously preparing for these exams and is among the top passers, so this is some kind of mistake. Kiko said that Kei got into a grade and she is very angry about it. Reggie thought Ito is seriously screwed up. The girl said she was in B class, a grade lower than this cheater. The hero said that's one of the best classes and he congratulates her. The girl said that this is the name of Reggie she doesn't see here. The one said that it was supposed to be in class A, but apparently it wasn't entered because of a mistake, so you have to go ask the teacher's office about it. Kiko yelled out that she found him and he's in class E. The hero interjected. She told him to see that Furuya Reggie was in class E. The one hesitated. He was completely shocked. He was thinking about how he didn't understand anything. The hero thought that 10 years had passed since he was kidnapped and summoned to another world, that all those years he had risked his life and fought monsters as a hero, that he had defeated the Demon King, saved the whole world, reached level 15-0, but had fallen into E class, one of the worst. He told Kiko that he must be extra class, that it was awesome and he had a good feeling about this E. The girl said that here is the usual order, A, B, C, D, E, which is the worst in his class. She asked if Reggie was okay, adding that he had somehow turned pale. Toth asked if it was that bad and said he would go to his class. He walked into class 1E, a classroom full of sad students. He figured most of the people here were already desperate and hoped they would come round a little later. The boy didn't realize how he got into E class. It was time for the meeting after the admission ceremony. The girl said her name was Sato and that she would be the class teacher of the E class and she was happy to meet everyone. She said that even though they ended up here, each of them remains a chosen person with the mark of an adventurer. Sato said that it was worth it for them to increase their level and strength as they could change class at any time, so from now on they would be diving into the dungeon frequently and she hoped they would get used to it quickly. Reggie was surprised to learn that it was possible to change class. He thought that if he could prove his strength, he might be promoted to D class, that with his abilities, even a class wasn't a problem. Looking at his hand, he didn't understand how he could prove it. His palm still had the first level on it. The boy had a bad feeling and thought that perhaps escaping E class was initially impossible. Sato said that before the boys went to the dungeon, they were required to form a patty, that it would be too difficult to survive alone, and if any of them died, she would be stripped of her bonus. The boy said that the teacher was too frank. Ta said that when creating a patty, one should not forget to think about the balance between professions. A guy said he was a warrior, a girl said she was a monk, another guy said he was a wizard. Another girl said she was a thief and suggested creating a patty for 4. One guy approached Reggie and asked him what his profession was. The one thought about how he had always fought alone, so he had wanted to try something like that for a long time. The guy shouted out what he was telling him and to stop him from standing on a pole. The hero asked back in surprise. The boy repeated the question about the profession. The boy said that the boy had none. The boy said he didn't understand. Reggie said he had no profession. The whole class froze. Everyone started laughing at him. Some said he had no profession, some asked how he got to this school. One guy said he saw him make a scandal at the level test. Sato told the guys not to laugh. Reggie thought about the fact that he was a former hero who had returned from another world and had become an underachiever from Class E and a general outcast. The whole class shouted that he was unemployed. He thought about how just a moment ago they were all desperate, but it became to find a scapegoat, how they immediately changed, that it was shocking, and teacher Sato doesn't even try to stop them. Ta told everyone to keep quiet, that Furuya was just special, that's all. She said that his physical and test scores were the best among all of them and that he was placed in E class solely by the decision of the principal and his deputy. She said not to let the boys dare to make fun of him. The boy thought that he knew he was the best on the test after all. Sato was shaking and covered his mouth with his hand and said that he was unemployed. The hero thought that now it was clear why she was assigned to the E class. A boy asked Reggie if he was realistically without a profession, adding that this was a Homa. Another asked if the boy realized how useless he was. Yet another suggested he drop out of this school before he pulls them all down. Sato said that was too harsh and suggested that someone take Furuya to his patty. The girl said that was simply not possible. The guy said that no one would risk their life unnecessarily by taking a useless load into the party. The guy said, right in the hero's ear, that they would call him unemployed for all 3 years, and he bet that he would even piss in the dungeon. He asked what he was going to do. Reggie turned to the teacher and said that with her permission he would go to the dungeon. The teacher and students were shocked and the guy made a satisfied face. The hero thought Sato hadn't heard him, and again said that with her permission he would go to the dungeon. The guy asked who would go to the dungeon with him unemployed, putting a hand on his shoulder. The fellow replied that he would go alone. He easily threw back his hand. The teacher said that she would finish Reggie with that and she would be screwed if he died. The boy said that one would only go alone. The girls laughed loudly. The hero said it was a waste of time to explain it to them and he was glad to meet. One of the guys said that listening to him talk like that was a waste of time. Everyone agreed and laughed. Sato told them to stop. One guy asked another guy what was the matter. The one said that Reggie had swept his hand away so easily even though he was holding it tightly. The guy laughed and said that the one was weaker than the unemployed man. Toth told him to shut up, thinking about the fact that he was a level 3 martial arts master. The hero walked to the Uno Park dungeon and thought about how he had not imagined school life this way. When he got there, he thought it was good that the school wasn't far from the dungeon. He thought that he seemed to be going through the official procedure to visit the dungeon for the first time, that it was troublesome, but he needed an ID card to be allowed to excommunicate during class. Inside, he saw lockers, which he was glad about. He was surprised that they even had a locker room, but the truth was paid for. Reggie thought that the government would soon remove the fee in order to attract adventurers. He thought that the Adventurer Guild in the other world also offered similar services, and he was pleased to know that they cared about their comfort. The hero realized that there was no one around, so it was possible to go straight to the 1000th floor using the dungeon core. He went to the Dragon of Darkness, the boss of the Uno Park dungeon. The one quickly moved on Reggie. The boy managed to dodge and began to recite a spell. He thought about the fact that after abruptly retreating, he would most likely exhale flames. The hero thought to counterattack with a pre-prepared freeze spell. The dragon roared loudly. The boy thrust his sword into the dragon, and it began to disappear into the dust. A mountain of bounty appeared in its place. Reggie thought the dragon had been killed, and 5.31 seconds was his new record. He noticed a book in front of him. The boy realized that a rare spell book had been dropped from the dragon. He saw their drying up levels too. The hero thought about the fact that his level drying was hard to call useful because higher level monsters had resistance to it, that there must be an improved version of it in the second volume and he would read it later. On his return he said he was home. Proto 1 congratulated him on his return. He said that he was quite early today and asked if he had started making videos. Hero replied in the affirmative. He said he only defeated the dragon as usual. He said that today they would finally get around to shooting the video for channel 2. It was a channel about cooking for dungeon exploration. The boy was scared and creepy nervous. The camera in front of him said. Golem said he would switch it on 3, 2, 1. Reggie replied that he understood. Proto 1 started to count, but the hero shouted asking them to speed up. Golem said they started. The hero said that after defeating the slime, they should remember to collect its slime, that it actually has many uses, and today he would teach the audience how to make a potion from it. He stopped filming and apologized to the golem for being too worried. The golem replied that everything was fine. The boy said that the potion could drop randomly from any monster, so there was always a chance of getting it even at first level, and he thought there were such people. He said that it was currently at a very high price, so everyone who got it is the real lucky ones. Reggie said that the potion could actually be made by hand, that the main ingredient was the medicinal moss growing on the 26th floor. The slime would be needed as a stabilizer, and without it the potion would spoil quickly, and during long sorties it was impractical. He said that the slime acts as an excellent preservative that preserves all the healing properties of the moss for a long time, then suggested we get to cooking. The boy said that here was the potion ready and offered to try it out. He drank the potion, thinking hard going. Reggie said it came out pretty good and he could even feel his skin getting smoother. He said that making the potion by hand wasn't that hard, and the most important practice was that they would see each other again. Proto 1 said that everything was already filmed and it came out fine. The hero asked in surprise if everything was already true and without reshooting. The one replied that if they reshot every shot he was unhappy with, they would never film anything. The boy wondered. He asked if the golem could at least remove the shots where he starts mumbling and asked him to promise to do so. Proto 1 agreed. The next day came. Reggie said good morning. The golem replied in the same way. He said that the number of subscribers on the second channel has already crossed 3 million. The hero was surprised and said that it is almost like the main channel and it is amazing. Proto 1 said that on the government procurement website, the prices of slime and medicinal moss were increasing every minute. The boy was surprised. He said it seems like they are running low on stocks of medicinal moss. Golem said that if the potions start selling cheap, it could save the lives of many adventurers. Reggie agreed. He said that he had a lot of stocks of this moss, but if he sold it all at once, it would attract attention, and maybe he could sell it in pieces so it wouldn't be so noticeable. He thought that by entering the adventurer school, he was able to enter the dungeon at any time without any problems, and filmed a bunch of videos about safely going through dungeons. The hero thought about the fact that the number of views had already passed 1 billion. That adventurers by the hundreds were writing him comments thanking him, and it felt good to do good. In the video, the boy said that today they would make croquettes from dungeon potatoes. He thought that this was the pace of the second term. There were heated discussions going on outside the adventurer's school. A girl asked another if she had seen the transferred student, adding that she was a beauty. Another asked if she was talking about the blonde girl. Others said she was so beautiful, as if she wasn't from their planet. A boy said that only that Asian girl could compare to her in beauty, that she was like a princess. Another said that they only have 3 such beauties in their school. Reggie remembered that they had said that a foreign girl was transferring to them. He thought that 3D girls were none of his business. At that moment, he never thought he would get close to them. A little earlier, at the White House, the president revealed a picture of Reggie on a tablet. He said that Furuya Reggie is just an average-looking high school student. Linda asked if he really owns a dungeon exploration channel, adding that he doesn't look strong. Grandpa said that it concerned her too, that no one would have thought that a sweet little angel like her could be the best adventurer in the United States with a level 34. She embarrassedly said that it wasn't like saying that in front of people. She looked at his pictures and asked why he was always staring at the camera. The man said they tried to do covert filming, but he turns around every time they wanted to take a photo, and after all, they had the best team doing the surveillance. The woman said he probably has a detection skill. In one of the photos he was showing class. The girl was embarrassed. The president said it was obvious that N was aware of the US surveillance, so they curtailed the operation, but if about his reaction to the shooting, not every schoolboy has such courage. He said he wanted Linda's opinion on what the chances were that he might be recruited by another nation to explore the dungeons. Ta replied that there were none. She said that she had seen him go through the 100-floor dungeon of Ueno Park, that it was just thrilling and the military didn't stand a chance against him. The president replied that he understood. Linda said that it would take an adventurer of a level higher to force him, that she didn't know what level Fury was, but clearly beyond 100. Grandpa said that he still wanted the one to become part of the adventurers of the United States and asked the girl if she could win his heart. The one was puzzled. He said it was certainly in the name of national interest, but it was more than that, that like her grandfather, he thought the boy was the perfect candidate for her, that his bravery had helped save the world from many losses. The girl pondered. She, embarrassed, shouted for her grandfather not to joke like that and asked if he had forgotten that she was only 16. He replied that it was not a joke and Furuya Reggie was also 16. Linda thought that after saying that, there was only one thing that came to mind. She thought about Furuya Reggie, that he seemed like a simple guy, but he was actually the owner of KPIP, the greatest adventurer and the dream of all adventurer girls. She thought of that very same Furuya Reggie and her together. The president asked what was up with the Japanese government. A man replied that they had not taken any steps yet. Another said they were only considering the idea of a special tax for streamers. At this time, Linda, all red in the face, was in her own thoughts. The man said that about the Furuya project, he believes that the government is waiting for the annual publication of the financial results, that Japan's tax service is difficult to hide its data, so that at that moment many details of its secrets will be revealed. The president said that means Furuya Reggie's peaceful life will at best last another couple of months. Currently, outside the school, a guy ran up to the hero, shouting, asking how he even ended up in the E-class. The guy didn't realize who it was. The guy asked if he, like him, was going to enter B-class in the second term, adding that E-class was for the last dregs. Reggie thought that this was the same guy who had lashed out at him on the day of admission. The one said that he realized that it would be difficult for an unemployed person to get into a patty, but it was a waste of time to languish in E-class. The hero wondered what he meant by a waste of time. The guy, as he left, told Furuya to step up and that he would be waiting for him in B-class. Reggie's eyes lit up. He thought that was very cool, and he wished he could be like him. One girl asked the others if they had seen what just happened, adding that it was creepy. A second asked if he was embarrassed to blabber such a thing that one would wait. Another said he was embarrassed just because he heard him talk, and I guess that's what Spanish shame is. Reggie, overhearing the conversation, thought that although he shouldn't be like that guy. When he walked into the classroom, the teacher was surprised that he was alive. She said that if a corpse in the dungeon remained for more than 24 hours, it would be swallowed up by the dungeon itself, and if he wandered around the dungeon alone, he might die and be swallowed up since there would be no one to carry his body. The boy thought that Sato's teacher doesn't change. The one exclaimed. She said she almost forgot that Principal Iwaki had summoned him, that he needed to go to his office immediately. The hero was surprised and asked what he wanted from him. Sato asked not to forget to tell him that she was a great teacher. Reggie thought that she wasn't even listening, that you couldn't even tell from her that she was a great teacher. He reached the principal's office and noticed that someone came out of it. It was a girl. He looked at her for a long time. She looked at him too. The hero thought about the fact that she was looking right here. The girl bowed to him and walked on. They, embarrassed, separated in different directions. The hero thought about how this girl is just like the main character of this season's popular anime 9 Men. He knocked on the principal's office, but only silence followed in response. The boy opened the door and said that it was Furuya from E-class and he was coming in. Someone quickly dashed right behind him. The boy shouted that it was impossible, that he was a level 25 assassin. He shouted that he was nevertheless captured by a level 1 unemployed. Rigi grabbed him from above. He thought about the assassins targeting him in this world as well, but he suddenly thought that is it really the principal? Another guy appeared. He turned to Furuya and said that Tanaka had attacked him on his orders and asked him not to hold a grudge. The hero asked who he was. The man replied that his name was Iwaki. He said that he was currently the principal of this school. The boy was surprised and thought he could faintly believe it. Iwaki asked if he was pulling his weight as principal, adding that he was an engineer by training in general. He said they had purposely called Rigi to check again and apologized, adding that such was their job. Toth heard Tanaka talking about the check. The director said he wasn't good at wandering around, so he would ask directly. He asked Rigi if he was a former hero who had returned from another world. The latter was shocked. He asked where they got that from. Tanaka thought it was right on the mark. Iwaki said from the fact that he was like that himself. Toth was surprised. The director said it wasn't a lie and asked him to wait a while, taking out the scout. The boy wondered why he needed the scout now. Thoth asked to look through it at him and Tanaka. The hero looked at Tanaka's hand and saw their level 25 and the profession of assassin. He thought to himself that he was only showing it to the headmaster. On the palm of the principal's hand was level 1. Rigi was surprised. Thoth asked if he would believe him with it. The hero hesitated. Iwaki said that he had been drawn to different worlds, although unlike Fury he had not defeated the Demon King with his bare hands, but had merely helped the hero there with his knowledge of magical engineering. He said that it all came down to him using the knowledge he had gained in creating tools for adventurers and founded this school. He suggested that they sit down and talk about everything. They sat down opposite each other. The principal asked where they would start. Rigi said that regarding this talk about returning from other worlds and that he was bringing back a scout. Iwaki said that as soon as he found out that the boy had no profession, he immediately suspected that they had similar situations, that they were like comrades in misfortune, and he was glad to know that the theory was right. The hero wondered if the one was definitely alright. The director asked if Furui's worked this dungeon exploration channel. He said that the hero's guides are awesome and asked if he was doing all this for the benefit of the adventurers, and since that was the case, they were on the same team. The boy thought he was talking a lot. Iwaki asked how he managed to make those videos and if he could show him his camera next time. Tanaka raised his hand and turned to the director. He said that they had a plan after all and needed to get to the main topic. The principal remembered everything and apologized, adding that he got carried away. He said that Rigi, like him, had returned from another world, so he had questions for him. Toth thought he didn't like that. Iwaki said that starting tomorrow, the time of random dispersal would begin and he would like Thoth to help him with the students' defense. The hero said he refused. He thought about the random sprawl time is that once a year for a couple of days random monsters move from the lower floors to the upper floors and start killing all the adventurers they can get their hands on. And last time the random sprawl time ended with countless casualties. He thought that one could just avoid entering the dungeons these few days. But the monsters are not the only thing that this phenomenon brings with it, that also increases the chance of getting rare loot and treasures such as Scout. Iwaki asked why he was refusing. The boy said that he had important things planned for this period that he couldn't be away from. The principal and Tanaka looked at him. Iwaki shouted, asking him to wait, that this was the time of random formation, that after all, he had even talked about how dangerous it was in his videos. The boy asked if he hadn't mentioned in the same video that just because of the high risk, it was better not to go into dungeons at all during that period. He said that since it was so dangerous, why didn't the school forbid students to enter the dungeon? That in the dungeon it was every man for himself and he was not going to take responsibility for those who ignored his warnings. The principal said that this was true, but this term they had created a special class for outstanding foreigner students, that they were at the top of the world rankings, and because of this everyone from a class onwards wanted to show foreigners that they were just as good. He said frustratedly that he had tried to stop Countess Crinwich but all to no avail. The hero thought about the Countess. He thought that the corpses would have no use for ostentation and pride anymore. He apologized and said he wasn't going to change his mind. Iwaki thanked him anyway and said it had been nice chatting with him. Tanaka told him not to give up so quickly. The director told Rigi that if he did change his mind, he could contact him. The latter replied that there was no need to worry and he would not change his mind. Iwaki said that he was just wondering what his business was. The hero said that there would be a Comic-Con and he and Yamada had agreed 6 months ago. The director interjected. The boy said that his favorite artist would be there this time and that a limited edition of figures from 7 Men of Heroin would be given away to the participants. That the artist would be there on the 3rd day and on the 1st day he wanted to get that particular figure and buy official merch, that the prototype figure had been worked on by that famous master Yumatani and asked if it wasn't amazing. The wacky apologized and said that the man had spoken so fast that he had listened. The boy said that when he was still in middle school, he didn't have that much money to go to such events and was left to cry, but this time nothing would come between him and the Comic-Con. He asked if the principal knew that the Comic-Con was a real battlefield and said that he was so excited that he could stay up all night, but out of respect for the rules he would be there exactly at the time of the opening. The wacky asked if he was going to an anime expo for some limited staff. Reggie replied that that was exactly the case, that he shouldn't be so rude about it, that he might get angry too. The principal said that Furui has a lot of money, after all, that even if he didn't get that figure day in and day out, he could always buy it at some auction or resale. That one looked at him ominously. The wacky cried out, apologizing and that he had gibbered unnecessarily, thinking that the boy was creepy. Toth replied that it was no big deal and he went. As he walked down the street, he thought about how he was still surprised and didn't think that anyone but him had been to another world. He thought he would have chatted with him some more, but until the SMR, the time of randomization, was over, it was impossible. He thought that if they did get together, he felt it would only add to his torment. Reggie thought that he'd better concentrate on the 3 days of the Comic-Con that awaited him, for it would be a real battle. The first day of the random Mastasoka came. Tanaka was on the 11th floor of the Ueno Park dungeon and was fighting a huge spider. He was using shadow binding. He used enchantment, poison, paralysis, stealth skill, curl attack, critical hit. The guy jumped high and was already approaching the spider's paw. Tanaka was surprised that the level 25 assassin's shadow bind didn't work and his knife didn't even scratch the spider. He was approaching the monster. He thought that one was too strong for the 11th floor, that's what random sprawl is for. He realized he was going to die. Suddenly Isabella appeared. She cut off the spider's legs with her sword. The spider was left without paws. Tanaki shouted to the countess. She turned to him and the class students and asked if they were hurt. The boy replied that they were fine and thanked her for saving him. He marveled at her speed, thinking about the fact that with his level 25 he hadn't even noticed her. One of the students said that if Assassin Tanaka and Isabella-san weren't here, they would have all died long ago. Tanaki said that he hadn't done anything. The girl said that she would go on. The boy told her to try not to overdo it. Ta agreed to do so. He thought she was going to save her negligent classmates. He thought she was a kind girl and he would hate to see her die in a place like this. The special class thanked the assassin Tanaka for his help. The latter asked them where the others were. They said that everyone else had gone down to the 36th floor, that their party was getting tired, so they didn't go any further than 35. The boy asked if it was a joke about the 36th floor. The boy said he was telling the truth, that they had Sanzanin and Yu with them, so the research went on without any problems. Tanaka was scared and thought that things were bad. The day before Proto One said that the master was in a good mood. The latter replied with a smile that tomorrow was the day after all. When he heard the bell ring, he opened the door and said he was listening. The boy shouted he was surprised to see that the level 25 assassin Tanaka was in front of him. The man apologized for coming uninvited. The hero remained silent. He said that he had to get up early tomorrow and said goodbye, slamming the door. The boy shouted and began to ring the bell. The boy opened the door again and asked him not to make any noise. Tanaka shouted that it was an urgent conversation. Reggie agreed and told him to speak what he wanted. The boy replied that it was not a street talk. In the hallway, the hero asked if the guy was going to go any further. The fellow declined and said he was fine here as well. He said that the principal had summoned the prime minister for a talk and was likely to be told off for the SMR situation. The boy asked why the prime minister would do that. Tanaka said that unlike normal schools, theirs specialized exclusively in adventurers and asked why he thought they got the go-ahead for the program so quickly. Reggie replied that he has no idea and he doesn't build schools. The guy said it was because they had help from people at the top and the prime minister saw their project as a great investment. The hero asked if they would talk for long and if it would not be bearable until tomorrow. Tanaka asked to give him 3 minutes. He said that some of the politicians criticize the school and demand its closure. They say they are sending young people to their deaths in dangerous dungeons, but the public supports the prime minister because the resources are incredibly important. He said that if too many people died at SMR, the public would agree that the school should be closed, so they should protect the students. Tanaka said that the prime minister would not risk his rating and would probably abolish the school, that the principal has been worried about the idea for a long time. Reggie said there were 2 minutes left. Guy was surprised at his stubbornness. He said that Countess Krinvich, Sanzai Nayano, Yu Hanfia are the 3 main beauties of their school and their pride. The boy replied that he was happy for them. The boy was surprised that the one didn't care about the beauties and thought that the one was made of steel. Meanwhile, Reggie said there was a minute left thinking about the fact that he had 25 figures with beauties at home. He said that Tanaka was worrying too much and he also let out a warning saw. Toth thought he would like to believe. He asked to what floor it would be safe to go down to with 3 level 40 adventurers. The boy said no lower than 36, that at 37 everyone would die. The boy thought that no one would go down that deep and should trust Furia that continuing to talk to him would only worsen his relationship with them. The hero asked if he needed to explain why the 37th floor was so dangerous, adding that it would take 10 seconds. The man replied in the negative, adding that it was fine as it wasn't thanked. Reggie thought that maybe he was acting too immature and that the SMR monsters were extremely strong. Currently, in the dungeons of Ueno Park on the 36th floor, the students were fighting a monster. The girl shouted to Ayano. The latter used an iceberg and an ice jet rushed forward. The girl shouted that the monster was fast. The iceberg hit the monster's face and froze it. Yu jumped high up and landed on the monster, cutting off its head. Looking at the defeated monster, everyone shouted joyfully that they had succeeded. Someone was surprised at how many rare loot, said that was why they had SMR. He wondered how much they would get for it all. The guy said he could buy himself a flat in a high rise. The girl said they would become celebrities. Someone shouted that they'd live primo and improve their lives, that they'd crash the economy like that. The girl said that you can buy so much for yourself. Someone said that power does decide and I wonder how much more they will make. The guy said it doesn't even feel like SMRT right now. The other said it was right and the victory was easy. Yu was shaking all over. She shouted, asking what they were all about, that it was no joke to them. She said that without her and Ayano, they would have all died a long time ago. Yu Hanfa was a level 40 warrior and number 2 in the world rankings. The guy agreed and said that it helped them a lot to have them join them. The other agreed with him. Yu shouted that they didn't join. She said that she and Ayano were here to stop them. She said that they helped because those were in danger. The boy thought about her legs being gorgeous. The girl thought that when that one gets angry, her Japanese gets worse and it's very cute. Yu said that it was very selfish of them to throw themselves into danger like that. They were only ruining the reputation of their school of adventurers. A boy said he was shocked. Another said the girl didn't care if they died. A girl said that's what Yu was like and she thought they were friends. The one was surprised and shouted that she didn't say that. The boy said that he knew that was how he knew she cared about her classmates after all. The other said that was great and that meant we could go down to the next floor. They thanked Yu for her help. The latter shouted asking what was wrong with them. She asked Ayano to help. Sanzai Ayano is a level 40 mage, number 2 in the world rankings. She turned to her classmates. Those turned round. She said that the previous battle was somewhat dangerous and they might get hurt next time. Everyone was shocked that Sanzai had spoken. They were thinking about the fact that she was a real princess coming from the noble family of Sanzai and besides, her breasts were second in size only to Isabella. One of the boys thought that she usually only spoke to Yu. The other stared at her mesmerized. The girl shouted that they had it written all over their faces and the other thought she wanted to see it too. Ayano said she thought they had already demonstrated enough of the special class's capabilities. The guy agreed and said that they had accomplished their goal. The girl agreed. The guy said that most of the class got off while still on the 10th floor. Ayano asked embarrassedly why don't they finish their research on that floor this time. Everyone blushed. The guy asked what they would do. The girl shouted out asking them to wait. She said that they might as well go down deeper, that because of the SMR, the previous monster was strong, but they were able to defeat it after all. She said that according to Yu and Sanzai, the dungeon during SMR was dangerous, but it was because of this that they would be able to make money, that is, earn a reputation for their school. She asked if she wasn't right. The boy said yes. The girl said it was worth at least trying. Yu looked at them. The girl told Yu and Sanzai that they were on their own next and thanked. Yu was upset that they had left. Ayano asked what they should do. The girl replied that maybe they were so excited by the victory that they completely forgot to think. She said that they were also taking a big risk and she had little mana left. She said that you might think she was cold-blooded, but everyone who went down into the dungeons and put their lives on the line would die, not even a corpse would be left. She suggested leaving. Hanfa agreed. The two of them walked down the corridor. Yu asked if they would be alright. Ayano replied that the main task of an adventurer is to get the resources from the dungeon, and if you don't know what you can do, you can get into trouble, and that this applies to both them and their classmates. Yu agreed. Sanzai said that Kentakesi from their class should be in the rescue group on the ground floor. She thought about worrying about her classmates, but at the moment she needed to worry about her and Hanfa's safety first and foremost. Hanfa was thinking about the past at this time. Her mentor had told her that her job was not to defeat a superior opponent, but to protect the weak. Ayano turned to her. She apologized and said that she couldn't leave them after all. Sanzai said that she would then go with her. The Ta replied that she need not, that it was dangerous there. Suddenly someone turned to them and asked if they were only here. It was the Countess of Crinwich. She asked where everyone else was. The girls were overjoyed to see Isabella. She smiled at them. She had the profession of Holy Knight and level 42. She is number 1 in the world ranking. They said hello. You said that things were bad, that the monsters were too strong and their mana was running low, that also their classmates had descended to the 37th floor alone. Isabella was shocked. At this time, the level 25 assassin used sprinting, flickering between the people in the queue. People asked in surprise if someone had passed. Toth thought about how it was too crowded. He wondered where Furia was. He realized that he had to hurry or the schoolchildren would die. It was announced that the places to get a figure by 9 men had run out and you could not queue. Yamada told the hero that he was on time and could consider that the official figurine was already in his pocket. It was announced that the figurine was only sold at the specified counter. The boy said that he took the very first train, but still barely made it, that 9 men is too popular. He smiled broadly. Suddenly, Tanaka shouted that he had found him. Rigi was surprised and asked why he was here. The guy shouted that he was apologizing but that he was urgently needed in the dungeons of Ueno Park, that they had managed to recall almost all the students but a special class had gone down to the 36th floor and they were probably already down to the 37th. The boy was shocked. Yamada said the queue was moving. The hero shouted to Tanaka to take him his figurine and that Yamada would explain everything. He tearfully said that he really wanted to do it himself. Toth was surprised at the tears and thought he was having a hard time. He shouted that he owed him a debt and that he could leave on him. Rigi told Yamada that he would explain later. The latter replied that he understood and told him to hurry. The boy rushed forward. It was announced that they asked him not to run in the building, that it was dangerous. Yamada told Tanaka that one should not say gi but jayu. The latter was puzzled. Meanwhile, Isabella was walking confidently forward. She said that she couldn't believe that they had gone down deeper, still on SMR time. She told Sanzai and Yu to hurry. You said that if they just show up like that, they will only annoy them and it's too dangerous. She suggested hiding and observing the situation. Isabella thought. She said she couldn't just hide and watch, that she would help them openly. You wondered if Isabella was one of those people too. Ayano said that one was honest and open. Honfa asked about her own. She said that they were nobles, only able to complicate things. At this time, the special class descended to the 37th floor. Everyone was trembling with fear. The girl thought about the fact that she was ridiculed as a mere thief, but she was able to pump herself up to a top adventurer. She thought that even she was well aware that they couldn't escape him and here they would die. The monster opened its eyes. Isabella heard it. She shouted to the girls that she would go ahead. They agreed. Meanwhile, Rigi thought about how he wanted to teleport to Ueno Park right away, but the toilet was just overflowing. Isabella thought about the one student she had run into yesterday. She thought he was at least level 50 and he still wouldn't get out of her head. The girl decided that she should focus on something else now and needed to get to the 37th floor as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the festival area, Rigi was thinking that he had to hurry up or the whole special class might die, but if someone saw him using the teleporter, it could only get worse because using magic outside the dungeon was forbidden. He spotted a staff door and walked through it. One guy took notice. He shouted for the boy to stop and that outsiders were not allowed in here, but there was no one behind the door. The hero teleported away. There were many injured people outside the dungeon of Ueno Park. They were shouting asking for help, that they were in pain. A guy shouted that his friend was dying, asking for help. Rigi was wearing invisibility and stealth. Seeing everyone he was surprised. He thought about how he had warned so many times and they all ignored his advice. The boy thought that he didn't have time to help everyone and should rush to the 37th floor and ignore. People kept shouting for help that they didn't want to die. The hero stopped. He thought there was an emergency. He wanted to use the super treatment, but someone had already done it. People were shouting that nothing hurt anymore, that all the wounds had healed, thanking. Rigi was surprised that there were some who were already able to use the super treatment. It was Ken Takeishi, a level 39 Grand Priest, number 7 in the world rankings. He shouted for everyone to finish with their thanks, that they were so blinded by greed that they had barely made it to level 10 and it was a disgrace. People shouted asking to stay with him a little longer, more like help. Someone shouted that his arm was broken. Ken shouted for them to shut up. That treatment was on a first come first served basis and used the super treatment. The guy told him that a man was dying here. The guy replied that he understood. Rigi thought the treatment could be left to him and needed to hurry. On the 37th floor, the guy shouted that he saw this monster on the KPIP channel, that it was a baby dragon from the 100th floor. The dragon towered over the students of the special class. There was steam coming out of its mouth. Everyone was very frightened. The girl thought that she had persuaded everyone to come here, so she was responsible. She shouted that she would buy them some time to escape so they would leave quickly. A guy yelled for her not to say anything stupid. Another shouted that they were all special class. The girl shouted that thanks to Yu and Ayano, she still had a lot of mana. Everyone shouted that they would finish him off. Suddenly, in one movement, the girl lost her arm. She didn't have time to realize anything. Everyone around her screamed in pain. Most had lost an arm or a leg. The girl did not realize what had happened. The dragon came closer to her face. She thought that the difference between the levels was too great, that she needed to stop her arm from bleeding with magic. She didn't understand what was the point, she would be killed soon anyway. Suddenly, someone used an iceberg. The wall of ice headed towards the dragon, but it passed by. Ayano said she knew it. She changed the direction of the ice and it caught up with the dragon, freezing its paw. The girl was surprised to see Sanzine. She thought they were saved. Ahead ran Yu, attacking with her foot in a leap. There was an explosion. The girl couldn't believe it was Yu's kick. She shouted that the monster was strong and didn't have a scratch on it. The one squealed, exhaling smoke from its mouth. The girl was frightened. Isabella shouted that she would not allow it, covering the dragon's attack with her shield. The monster was thrown back against the wall, which it hit hard. The girl thought about the fact that she launched it into the wall and didn't even use her sword, that she must have the #1 in the world ranking. Isabella asked the goddess to grant her strength. She thought that she couldn't pierce him. She used the goddess's embrace and he was surrounded by magical particles. The girl thought that even that one could not defeat him. The countess shouted for everyone to get out of here quickly, that there was no way to hold him off for long. She thought that the embrace of the goddess had used up all her mana and that she would not be able to bind him a second time. Ayano used super healing. The special class thanked her. Yu said they would buy time and then catch up with them. She gave the severed arm to the girl and shouted that Takshi was waiting upstairs. The latter was surprised that they did not hope to kill him. Hanfa shouted for everyone to run faster, that they would not last long, and those who could go must help the wounded and not dare die. Meanwhile, Isabella pulled out the last mana potion from her inventory. Sanzine fell to the floor from lack of mana. The countess noticed this and held out the potion, telling her to drink it. The girl thanked, but the potion bounced and flew onto her forehead, then swirled on the floor. Yu picked it up and gave it to her. She told Isabella that Ayano was an upside-down mage and she shouldn't be throwing objects at her like that. The latter embarrassedly said that it wasn't that bad. The countess apologized and said that she didn't mean to throw it like that. She was very embarrassed. Meanwhile, Rigi was on the ground floor. He decided that he would immediately teleport to the 37th floor and open the inventory. Suddenly, he realized that he couldn't find the dungeon core in it. Meanwhile, Proto One was rubbing his home saying that it was beautiful. The boy thought that he wasn't planning to go to the dungeon today, so he left it at home, that maybe he should go back for the core. He decided it would be faster to get to the 37th floor on his own too. On the 37th floor, Isabella was fighting a dragon. She thought it was the end. He was looking right at her. Yu shouted that she would win 5 minutes, then everyone could escape. Ayano said that with her mana, she would be able to do a maximum of 1 scale spell and 3 abductions. The dragon swiftly dashed over and unleashed its attack. Yu used body reinforcement steel, but their clothes were badly cut by the monster's attack. They were thrown back hard. Hanfa thought it was too fast, immediately targeting her legs and Isabella's shield, that they just couldn't keep up with it. She thought it was because of the speed. The others lost sight of him, but he moved very quickly behind their backs. Yu took the countess in her arms and used body strengthening tripling. She shouted to Ayano. The latter looked forwards. The dragon released flames at them. Ayano used the magic of the great sage, Absolute Shield. Yu told her that she had done well. Ta agreed but said that this spell gobbled up a ton of mana. They were in a magic bubble that kept out the monster's attacks. Sanzine said that cracks went. She used a fool's swap, 30 XP for 20 mines. Yu said that she would use her trump card, that this technique deals huge damage, ignoring any type of defense, but the price of the technique is her life. She said she would catch the moment and the two of them should run. Ayano said she didn't want Hanfa to die. She used a fool's trade of 15 XP for 10 mana and said that in addition it's worth the shield going to sleep as it would roast them all to death. The shield started to disappear and the girls thought it was over. Suddenly someone used the iceberg to protect the girls. The ice headed towards the dragon and completely immobilized it. The monster was completely in the ice. The girls were very surprised and cried. Rigi thought it was dangerous and it was good that he had time. He was wearing a helmet and was glad he had one. Behind the helmet he was smiling broadly. Yu recognized him and said it was KPIP. Ayano hid behind her back. Isabella said that it was the channel master of the dungeon exploration channel. All the girls had their breasts ajar because of their torn clothes. They looked at the hero. He turned away and opened the inventory. He was embarrassed and thought that everywhere was solid 3D. The boy took out the adventurer's robes and gave them to the girls. He said it was an unused drop and for them to take it, that he had as many as 3 lying around anyway. The girls looked down and got embarrassed. Rigi thought he was embarrassed and said he would stay out of the way. He thought that today was supposed to be one of the best days of his life, and those jerks had ruined it, even though they got it too. He shouted for the monster to get ready and hit the ice with all his might. The ice shattered violently forwards. He thought he had mistakenly put too much force into the blow. Ayano was greatly frightened. You thought it was amazing power, and Isabella thought that the canal owner-san was in a bad mood today. Reggie stood in front of the awards from the dragon. He thought they had already changed and turned around. You thought about her feet hurting. Ayano wasn't feeling well either, and Isabella was looking at the boy with a smile. The latter thought about them falling off their feet soon and asked if they needed to be fixed. You asked if that was okay and rejoiced. The countess said she would be most grateful for his help. The hero thought that should be enough to heal 3 4-level adventurers. He used the super cure and everyone was illuminated. The girls were perplexed. Hanfa shouted that it was amazing that all the wounds healed in the blink of an eye. Isabella thought it was the first time she had seen such powerful healing magic. Sanzine interjected about the super healing. You turned to the hero, identifying him as a KPIP mentor. The countess said there were no words to express how grateful they were to him for saving them and asked how they could repay him. Reggie replied that he shouldn't, that he didn't need any payment from them and had helped because he wanted to. Ayano thanked him and hid behind you again. They stood there looking at each other. The hero said that Tanaka, a level 25 assassin, had told him what was going on here, that they had sacrificed themselves to buy time for the others after all, that he had encountered their class on the way here. Hanfa asked in surprise if he was talking about the same Tenkaka. She said that it was surprising that they knew each other. The boy said that they will divide the drop into 4 parts, even though it is his fault that some materials are destroyed. You said they didn't do anything, after all, and asked why he was dividing the loot into 4 parts. Isabella said that it was after all he who saved them and she simply has no right to claim a share from the dragon. Reggie said that he had come in the middle of a battle, so he should also divide the spoils among everyone, and if they had escaped from here, he wouldn't have been so generous. In the time of heroism, Daenerys told the adventurer that she and Reggie would go. They were walking down the corridor and the boy asked why she included them in the loot sharing. He said that if they weren't here, those would have died long ago. The princess said that she was doing it so that they would not cause them trouble in the future, that it often happens when they say they hunted that monster and others stole it from them. The hero gave a surprised look. The girl said that sometimes she thought that people were more trouble than monsters. Currently, the boy said that if they didn't want to, they could leave the prey here and it would be gone in 24 hours anyway. You shouted that she wanted it and would forever remember him sharing the loot with them. Ayano said something quietly to her. The girl said Ayano is also in the case and asks her to tell him that she will remember his kindness. Isabella thought about the girl's words. She thought that after all, she herself had come to Japan because she admired the dungeon exploration channel, that she had tried to be polite and maintain a noble appearance before, but if she did not speak out now, she would regret all her life. She embarrassedly said that she would also keep those memories in her heart. Reggie thought about what their words meant, what they would remember or keep in their heart. He thought that they must be subscribers to his channel. He was surprised and thought that this was the first time he was interacting with someone from his audience other than Kijima. The hero realized that he was getting nervous. He said that he had divided all the loot into 4 parts and they could choose whichever they liked. The girls thanked him. You said she didn't even know what to choose. The boy thought they looked happy. Hanfa asked Ayano to put her share in the vault as well. The woman agreed and asked her to wait. Suddenly she realized that nothing else could fit in the vault. You assumed it was some kind of bug. Sanzine said that it looked like the vault was full, that she had been throwing everything in there after all. The boy thought that he was doing the same thing, and it was as if he had met a fellow mind. Isabella said that if they didn't mind, she could help them. You asked if she was sure. Ayano thanked her. Reggie looked at Isabella. He thought about the fact that it was her he video outside the principal's office, that she was so kind and caring, just like Alicia from 7 Men Heroine, that she was a 3D anime heroine. You said that in real life the boy has the most normal speech, although in the video he stutters. Toth interjected. The girl replied that it was frequent, and the children even got into the habit of imitating him. She parodied his phrase. Reggie was embarrassed. He said he remembered something and asked why they had entered the dungeon during the random sprawl despite all his warnings. Hanfa said that the video had become a popular topic among adventurers. Isabella said that the special class wasn't originally going to the dungeon, but it all happened out of the blue. They looked at each other with a question. Ayano embarrassedly said that it was actually because of the principal and his deputy. Isabella interjected. You asked why she wasn't aware of it. Sanzine said they were out over the weekend. The teacher said that the SMR is only dangerous for ordinary adventurers, that the apprentices are a special class, the best in the world rankings, that they are different from ordinary adventurers. He asked if this was not a great opportunity for them to rise even higher. The man said that many in the class doubted their abilities and now they would be able to show them their full strength. He said that meant it was just as he felt. The teacher said that in SMR they would be able to collect a bunch of rare loot and naturally good results would also reflect on their grades, that special class is the chosen ones. He asked why not to test themselves during random looting. You asked if the principal provoked them. Sanzine replied in the affirmative. She said that another grade was being instigated by his deputy. Yu was very surprised and shouted, asking if Ayano had any acquaintances in the class. Rigi mentally asked if that was the only thing that surprised her. The girl replied that she had no acquaintances there, that she had overheard a conversation between a couple of guys in that class. The boy thought that for some reason he felt an affinity with this Ayano. Isabella asked why the principal and his deputy would want to set up a conflict between the two classes. Everyone looked at her. Sanzine suggested that perhaps it was because of faction fighting. She was asked again about the factions. The girl said that Principal Kanuta had received instructions from the Ministry of Culture and Education and Deputy Tsunagi from the Ministry of Land and Infrastructure. Yu was surprised that she knew so much. Isabella said she did not expect anything less from Sanzine House. Hanfa said she wasn't sure she fully understood, but apparently they have pitted the two classes against each other because of the rivalry between the ministries, and they are willing to go to any lengths. The Countess said that such a thing was hard to believe. Rigi thought about how usually the most unbelievable stories were true, that even in another world where everyone was on the verge of extinction, there was a power struggle. He thanked the girl for telling him about it and said that it was nice to know that his video had had the desired effect after all, and only the top had ignored it. The girls smiled. The boy said that they had helped him a lot today, that if the students had died in the dungeon, the existence of the adventurer school would have been in question. However, he hoped that next time they would not get involved in such madness. Yu agreed. Isabella said they would be more careful. Rigi said that when the dungeons appeared a little over a year ago, the whole world changed. That high level doesn't solve all problems, but still most of them. He said that the truth is for whoever has the higher level, that this is the way their current world is. He said that they realized the importance of levels and tried to raise it, so he didn't want them to die because of something trivial or something that turned out to be beyond them. The girls looked at him with embarrassment. The hero said that Holy Knight, Holy Warrior, Mage, that they were all high-ranking professions and it was very difficult to raise their level, but they did it perfectly. He said that he could clearly see how much effort they put in by going down into the dungeons time after time. Yu asked in surprise how he knew about their professions. The boy wondered. Isabella said she assumed the assassin Tanaka had told him. Sanzine asked if he was following the rankings. Rigi said he was only told their names and level, and he saw the profession with his equipment. The girls were very surprised. Yu queried about the equipment. Ayano was horrified, remembering how they appeared before him in tattered clothes. They stood silently facing each other. The hero didn't realize what this strange atmosphere was. He thought he had moved such a beautiful speech, and it seems that he did not express himself very delicately. The boy was embarrassed by this silence. Stammering, he said he would wait upstairs and asked if they agreed. Rigi immediately wondered what he was carrying. Yu said they would meet at the exit. Isabella added that they would get there quickly. The hero thought he didn't mean it and that it was a complete failure. He used the teleporter to the exit. Hanfa said that one had disappeared. Confused, he ran home and hid under a blanket. The boy remembered his phrase about what was waiting for them upstairs. He thought he had met his audience and wanted to give a motivational speech that things couldn't get any worse, and he wanted to erase any memory of this disgrace. While he was telling this story to Proto 1, the latter did nothing but smile. At night, the assassin Tanaka, who brought the hero a poster and a limited edition figurine, came in and said he would investigate the story with the principal and his deputy. He spent the rest of his days having fun divvying up the Comic-Con. Rigi said that Comic-Cons are the best. Yamada replied that this was true, adding that all their trophies could be sent home by courier. The boy said that he is actually a level 1501 hero and he is asked to save school children. His friend replied that he understood and began to tell him that he had heard about a game where the player reincarnates as a villain. The hero thought about Yamada's easy acceptance of his story and he seems to take it as a joke, but he is still a good guy. After 3 days, the Comic-Con ended. On the same day, the time of the random spread ended. Students who entered the dungeon during a random sprawl were severely reprimanded and suspended for a week. For some reason, Rigi was also suspended, so he devoted all of himself to watching anime and reading manga. Proto 1 said that as a precautionary measure, it was best not to take videos to additional channels for the time being. A week later, the girl raised her prosthetic arm. She thought about the fact that that one was controlled through mana and it would take some getting used to. Seeing this, Yu shouted in surprise that her arm had never been reattached. The girl was surprised. She thanked Hanfa for saving them during the SMR, adding that if she hadn't been there, they would have all been killed. Ta replied that she should thank KPIP, that without him that dragon would have killed them and then chased after them. The girl was surprised. Someone said that the arm could have been sewn back on if the one had shown him her wound at once. It was Ken. He said that she had been stubborn about getting the others healed first. The girl looked at him. Yu said that she should have been the one to get treated first. The one replied that it was no big deal. Ken said that seeing a gun instead of a hand was more important to her and he understood her. She said it's not like that and she just feels guilty. She said she would go to the dungeon and close the door behind her. Yu looked at her in surprise. Ken said that the one seemed to have been expelled from the patty. Hanfa asked if that meant that the one would go there alone. She looked in the direction where the girl had gone. She saw the one walking sadly and shouted, asking her to wait. She suggested to go together to the dungeon. The girl was surprised. Tears came to her eyes and she agreed. The three of them walked down the street. Meanwhile, Rigi was thinking about something. Proto 1 asked him if something was wrong. The one replied that he was still in E grade and he wondered why that was so. He said that his grades were definitely better than the others. The golem said that he could ask a level 25 assassin Tanaka about such a question and suggested calling him. The hero thought it was a good idea since the latter owed him a favor and they had exchanged numbers with him during the SMR. Tanaka answered the call. He apologized to Furuya, calling him Mr. and asked what he needed at such an hour. The latter asked him to stop calling him Master and suggested that he'd rather tell him how they decide who can move to another class and who can't. The assassin said that they look at the grades and progress of dungeon exploration. That progress is determined through the profit from the dropped loot and its rarity level, and they get the data from the official outlets Ministry of Zamali and Infrastructure. Rigi interjected. He said that he had sold a lot of materials through the official outlets. Tanaka asked if that was true, adding that he would look into the matter. The boy thought that somehow it was suspicious. He went to the office of Kijima's tax accountant. The girl said that all the data about money was here, and that she would now tell him everything regarding his question about the adventurer's school. The hero agreed, thinking that she was working fast. Kijima said that thoroughly Iwaki School, Aka the current CEO, that his philosophy is that their mission is to educate the younger generation of adventurers, that the school operates at a loss, but they do not collect donations, all funding comes from Iwaki Industries, the parent organization. She said she believes they don't want to rely on donations so that no outsider has a say in the school's policies. The hero asked if this meant that Iwaki wasn't kidding, that their mission was to educate the younger generation of adventurers. The girl replied that he was right, and she thought it was very likely. She said that Iwaki Industries also have a brand of gear for adventurers, but the profit from that can be disregarded, that due to their low cost and high performance they have no competitors in the market, and since the technology itself has been publicized, they do not fall under the antitrust law. Rigi was surprised. He thought the CEO was a good kid. He thought that means the problem is not with the CEO but with the school principal. The boy thought about the fact that Mentor Kijima was thorough as always and had studied the matter lengthwise, that Proto 1 was strong in searching for information on the internet, but he had his limitations. The girl said that Iwaki Industries' main income is processing monastones and selling equipment for the same processing, that they are #1 in the world market. The hero said that he understood, thinking about the fact that that's why he is an engineer from another world. Kijima thanked Rigi for his cooperation. The latter replied that he was always welcome. They shook hands. The boy walked home thinking that Kijima's mentor was a trustworthy person. The one looked at her hand in embarrassment after shaking hands with the hero. At school, Kiko was shouting loudly that she disagreed with something. Her boyfriend asked her to calm down, calling her a princess. She shouted that their patty sold much more materials, that they even gave away some rare items. She asked why others were being moved to a class and they were still in B class. The guy asked her to be a little quieter. The girl shouted for him to shut up and not to command. The other guy said that their leader is the daughter of the president of a big company, so that's the reason why this happened. Kiko continued to shout with anger. She shouted that it pissed her off, that she couldn't stand those who were patronized, that people like them made all their efforts seem like a joke. She was spotted by Rigi and asked what was wrong, adding that she was making a lot of noise. The girl turned to him. She asked what class he was in now, D or C, and whether it was true that he was not in E class. The one remarked that her skirt was very short. He said that so far he was in E. Kiko shouted that he was a jerk and asked what he was doing. The boy was surprised that she called him a jerk. A boy asked Rigi if he was an E-class jerk. Another said that the princess wasn't in the mood right now, so he should bugger off. A third apologized and said goodbye. The hero left, thinking that this was somehow wrong. He thought that since the last time they saw each other, Kiko had changed. Tanaka shouted to him, calling Furuya-san. The latter turned to him, adding that he had asked the same without the master. The assassin said that the CEO wanted to thank him for his help and asked if he could come with him. The boy replied that he would pass, only he asked for no new offerings. Tanaka said that he was now level 26. The hero said that means now that assassin is now level 26 Tanaka. The guy in Kiko's patty said that's the CEO's secretary. The other one agreed. The other asked why someone from the E-class was driving around with the assassin Tanaka. The girl looked at them in surprise. She didn't understand why this guy was getting along so well with the CEO's secretary. She thought he was E-class, he had no profession, and his parents were dead. Kiko didn't know how to make sense of it. In the principal's office, Iwaki said that he thanked Furuya from the bottom of his heart. He said he was very happy that no schoolboy had died and asked if there was any way he could thank the boy. The man interjected. He said that he then wanted him to take him back in time to the day the Comic-Con started. The director said that at the moment he didn't think that was possible with his technology. Reggie thought that he didn't understand sarcasm at all. Iwaki said he could pay, but the boy already had enough money. The one said about E-class. The principal asked if he was talking about Akira's class. The hero told the one not to pay attention. He thought that no one would like it if he changed class through connections. Iwaki took out his glasses and said that since the one didn't need the money, maybe this would do. He said that it was a prototype of a scout designed specifically by the government, that it displayed the level and profession not in the palm of a person's hand but above their head. He asked if Reggie would use such a thing. The boy's eyes shone. The principal said that wanted means it allowed him to take. The hero put on his glasses and thanked. Above Iwaki's head he saw level 1 and above Tanaki's head level 26 in the profession of assassin. Tanaki said it was a secret development and asked if it was okay to give it away. The director replied that it's Furuya, so it's fine. The hero cheerfully said that indeed everything can be seen. Iwaki said he wanted to talk regarding the headmaster and his deputy. He asked the boy if he was suspicious of them due to the fact that he was still in the E-class. He said that Reggie turned out to be right, that they were faking grades on purpose, but he felt that it would benefit him and he would stand out less. The hero was surprised. Iwaki said that they only help big shots like sons of politicians, daughters of big businessmen to rise up, that the government doesn't stand aside either. The hero asked if that meant that all his sales were credited to them. The director replied in the affirmative. He said that he had already discussed everything with Prime Minister Takahashi and they would fire them today, that it all gave him a headache. Reggie asked with an evil smile if he could join the spectacle. Iwaki replied that of course yes. Tanaka turned to him. The latter said that they still owed Furuya a debt of gratitude. Tanaka said he only asked the boy not to create any commotion. The one agreed. The assassin said that this answer gives him a bad feeling. They arrived at the headmaster's office. Reggie had a reduced presence of 99%. The man asked Iwaki what he wanted to talk about. The man replied that they would get straight to the point. He asked Mr. Kanuta and Mr. Tsunagi to write their resignations today. They were unperturbed. Kanuta asked what would happen if they did not want to do so. The principal replied that he would then sack them. The man said that he thought Iwaki didn't understand something. He asked how long he thought his school would last if 2 whole ministries became his enemies. Toph asked if that meant they were threatening him with closing his school, adding that he didn't even know what to say. Tsunagi said that whether it was a threat or not was up to him. Kanuta laughed. Reggie apologized and asked if he could intervene. Tsunagi asked who the other one was. Kinyala asked what the schoolboy was doing here. The one used the skill hypnosis. He said that all this was a waste of time and offered to talk clean. Everyone present was hypnotized and looked at him. The hero asked the principal and deputy what they were after, whether they needed money. Tsunagi laughed and called the boy an idiot, adding that they had no money. Kanuta said they planned to turn the adventurers' school into a place to raise the next generation of slaves. Tanaka was shocked. Iwaki interjected. Tsunagi said that essentially, the adventurers would become their slaves, gathering resources. The headmaster said that of course they were elite and would become their masters. Reggie gave them a serious look. Kanuta said that you can't openly call them slaves, because the lower class will start to resent it. The public will accept it more easily if you call the high school students the future generation of adventurers, and it's enough to just run an advertisement in the media. Tsunagi said that this is why students should only graduate with the highest grades, that it would increase their value in the marketplace, and in any case the lower class has always been and will always be slaves. Iwaki said that this was a horror, that after all he was creating this school for adventurers. Tanaka said that adventurers risked their lives and asked if they wanted to make them a cheap source of resources. Reggie said that to manage slaves, one must understand how they think. He advised them to go down to the dungeon and experience things on their own skin. Tsunagi replied that this was correct. Kanuta said that they should go to the dungeon. The hero said that before doing so, they should write a resignation letter and prepare their equipment. As they left, he told them to correct all the falsified data. The men agreed. The boy thought about the fact that he is not a fighter for justice, does not know whether he is lower class or elite, but he knows that he needs to return his data. Kanuta shouted, asking why slime was so hard to kill. Tsunagi shouted that not even adventurers can kill them and asked if that was true. They shouted that the slimes had them surrounded. Kanuta shouted for the slime to stay back. Tsunagi shouted that he didn't want to die. Suddenly, a team of 3 special class students appeared. Ken used the treatment twice. The men, who were almost entirely in slime, were surprised. The girls started the fight, easily attacking the monsters. The men shouted fearfully that they were saved. You shouted at them that it was dangerous to go into the dungeon with that kind of gear, that they should arm themselves better and go down again. Ken shouted that the dungeon was not a children's sandbox to them. The men bowed and thanked and said they would not forget this. Ken said that there was nothing to thank them for, that they should get out of here as quickly as possible, but not to get on their nerves. The girl thought that those looked exactly like the principal and deputy, but they would never have gone down to the dungeon in their lives. Reggie was at home watching the news. The reporter said that the former headmaster of the adventurous school and his deputy were injured in the UNO Park dungeon, that they were taken to the nearest hospital, but fortunately the wounds were minor and they were quickly discharged. Apparently neither of them were adventurers. Proto One said they called an ambulance for minor bruises and it wouldn't help. Hero asked if it was serious. He said that he should have instilled in them to take better gear, that they were underestimating the dungeon too much. Meanwhile, Iwaki said that the director and his deputy had tendered their resignation, but he barely remembered the dialogue with them. Tanaka replied that he too. Reggie arrived at Kiko's house. He was greeted by the girl's mother and said hello. He said hello and told her he was returning the manga he had borrowed from Kiko. He thought that the aunt had lost weight. The woman was surprised. She thanked him. The auntie said it must have been hard to carry them and asked if that was the case. The hero answered in the negative. The woman apologized and said that Kiko didn't want to see anyone and shut herself in her room. The boy thought that the one had become a hikikomori. He thought it was none of his business and said he was off. Suddenly the auntie called out to him. Reggie turned round. She said that the girl was so restless at times and apologized if the girl was giving him trouble. She said it was selfish to ask for such a thing, but she would want them to be friends forever. The hero looked at her in surprise. At home, Proto One said the one sagged. Hero said there was nothing funny about it, and that he was going there with the goal of permanently severing any ties with Kiko. Golem said that the auntie's situation was acute and now he and the girl are friends forever. Reggie said it's creepy that he can't stand being yelled at and also called a jerk. He asked if Proto One knew what he meant. He asked if Kiko was the anime incarnation of a tsundere. The boy replied that anime is different. He lay down on the bed and said that the girl used to be different. The golem replied that it was simple. He said that even though she may have the mark of an adventurer, but this role was beyond her. The hero interjected. He thought that if you think of it that way, Kiko started to change after she had the tag. Proto One said that even in the other world, there were adventurers who simply couldn't bear the burden of their powers. Reggie pondered for a moment. He thought that in the world he had been summoned to, there were about 2% adventurers for the entire population, and somewhere around 1/10 of them were not changing for the better. The boy thought about how they were driven mad by their own power, but with each new level they became more and more distant from ordinary people, causing them to mistakenly think of themselves as gods. He thought that in the end, it was getting to the point where they started looking down on ordinary people and beating them for fun, robbing the weaker adventurers in the dungeons. That Kiko had certainly not reached that point yet, but her character had changed a lot and she had become arrogant. Proto One said that this world was looking more and more like the one where Reggie had been summoned. Toth looked at him questioningly. The golem said that the news was reporting that adventurers had attacked ordinary people on the ground floor of the dungeon, beating them up and stealing all the materials. He said that maybe soon there would be RKs and MRKs like in the games. The boy was very surprised. He thought that in that world, the adventurer's mark was considered a god-given gift, so adventurers were given the duty of extracting resources from the dungeons. The hero recalled that those who refused to do their duty were punished severely, and those who used their skills to raid were expected to be executed. He thought this was too harsh, but was persuaded that it was necessary to maintain order. In the dungeon of Ueno Park, Kunami told his boss that it was time to wind down. The man agreed. He said that hitting a slime from the back was proving to be very effective. The guy agreed. He said that there have been a lot of muggings here lately and one should be careful. Suddenly they heard the girl shouting that she wouldn't do it. She asked why they should obey them at all. They yelled back at her to shut up, calling her an idiot. The guys looked out from around the corner. That girl was Tara and she was slapped in the face. The masked girl asked if it hurt too much. She apologized and said that at level 3 it was very difficult to control her powers. The boss said that they were bandits and they attacked the girl. Kunami quipped and suggested to go round. He turned to the boss, but the boss went ahead. He shouted to the men to move away from the girl, asking how they were not ashamed. The masked girl shouted for him not to be cheeky. She asked if he thought if he made himself look high level and they would immediately disperse. The guy said he didn't have the gear or the characteristics. He said that's what it was and the guy could leave his stuff here and get the hell out. He refused and asked why he should give them his loot, adding that they could kill the slimes themselves. The masked guy grabbed him by his clothes. Kunami shouted for him to take his hands off. The girl yelled that the worms decided to riot and they started kicking the guys and the girl. The masked guy told them not to overdo it, that if those died they would get into big trouble. The girl in the mask shouted that they were wimps. Another shouted that old people were a lot of fun to beat up. A guy asked if that was all there was to it. Another said for the old man to try harder. The masked girl said that the one would behave more obediently next time. They said they were winding up and started to leave. Hunami asked the boss if he was okay. The latter, holding his head, replied that he was fine. He asked to see how the girl was doing. Hunami asked Tara how she was. The one replied that she was unharmed, that she had killed a lot of effort on those materials. The boss said that the important thing was that she was unharmed. The girl thanked them for standing up for her. The boss said that they shouldn't and that they weren't much help after all. Hunami said no thanks and asked to be more careful next time. Tara told him that she wasn't thanking him, but the guy with the glasses. The man was surprised. The girl shouted that he was an old man, that he had ignored her and was trying to get away. Toth replied that he was only 22 years old. The boss said they were all unharmed and that was a good thing. He suggested that they go home for the day. Tara agreed. They walked down the corridor. The girl said she was pissed off with these jerks and asked where the police were looking. Hunami told her not to be silly, that ordinary policemen were no match for them and the rear was clear. Tara screamed, asking if she could do whatever she wanted now because of this. The boss tried to calm her down. He said that he thought the hunt was for high-level adventurers, but the ground floor was mostly unmarked people. Hunami said that with the right approach, adventurers are quickly pumped up to level 2 and a couple of runs are enough. The boss said that they realized that's why they attack anyone who deviated from the main route. Tara asked what they meant, adding that she didn't understand anything. Hunami said that simply put, you should stay close to the exit of the dungeon and they won't attack there. The girl said that there are a bunch of people at the entrance who are scouring for slimes, so they won't make any money and asked what they should do. The boss replied that's how it is. Hunami said he didn't think they could do anything here at all. Tara was very surprised. Boss thought he was glad they got along. The girl thought they were right, but for Sarah's sake she should kill as many slimes as possible. Hunami meanwhile was thinking about how the guy who had saved them was doing. Rigi was approaching the school and Isabella noticed him. She looked at him for a long time. The boy came to the sea warehouse. Tanaka apologized for calling. He said it was a private conversation and at the CEO's request he was becoming the headmaster of the school. The hero asked if he had a license to teach and said that means now that Principal Tanaka, a level 26 assassin. The one replied that you can just Principal Tanaka and about the change of class, he is currently investigating all the activities of the previous principal and it will take him some time. He said that the investigation is in full swing, but he assumes that by the end of it, the boy will be moved to a special class. Rigi cheerfully replied that it was natural. He said that there was a girl in the B class, Mitsuhashi Kiko, and asked if she would be transferred to the A class. Tanaka said he would look into it and went into the clipboard. He said that since it was private information, he could not divulge details, but there was little chance of her getting into a class. He apologized. The boy replied that he understood and thanked. Tanaka said that speaking of the main topic, the CEO wants to purchase medicinal moss, and as far as he knows, Rigi has whole deposits of moss in his inventory. He asked if that was true and said that they were willing to buy it at 5% above the market price. The hero was surprised and asked if Iwaki was brewing potions. Tanaka said that he planned to brew 100,000 bottles of potions and he guessed what the volumes for him would be. Bags of moss flew out of the boy's storage room one by one. He said there should be enough here for 100,000 bottles and he could give 500,000 pieces even now, thinking that this was not yet the limit. Tanaka said that he had a lot of moss and asked if moss collecting was his hobby. Rigi answered in the negative. He said that if the market value of potions decreased, it would save the lives of many adventurers, and above all, it could be a lifesaver for those who don't have the adventure tag. He said that if Iwaki was planning to engage in the mass sale of potions, he was only too happy to help. Tanaka said that the CEO wasn't wrong. The boy was puzzled. Iwaki said that he and Furuya shared a common goal and the latter would definitely help. Assassin asked the hero whether he preferred cash or a card transfer. He asked for a transfer to Furuya's project account. Rigi came to his 1E class wearing scout glasses. Sato's teacher called him unemployed and asked him if he had talked to the CEO. The boy was surprised that the teacher had a level 2. The whole class laughed and shouted that the hero was unemployed. The one saw that the others also had 2-3 levels. He thought about the fact that they were acting like junior high school students and he felt embarrassed in front of the neighboring classes. The class kept laughing and asked him to say something already. Rigi used hypnosis. He told them to calm down and that they should stop talking non-stop. Everyone stopped talking abruptly. The boy said that they had all entered this school 6 months ago and asked why none of them had practically risen in that time. He turned to the boy and asked why his level had not risen. The one was a 2nd level monk. He said that leveling up was very boring and he liked to sit at home and watch vids. The hero asked another guy. He was a level 2 warrior and said that dungeons were too dangerous and he could die. Rigi asked the teacher. She asked what was the point of raising her level above the 2nd level if she was already many times stronger than ordinary people. The hero thought that was what needed to be proven. He told those of them who were in the business of stealing loot from people without the adventurer tag to raise their hand. The hand was raised by absolutely the whole class. The boy was surprised at this. As he looked at the teacher, he realized that she too had raised her hand. He thought that everyone who had a shred of conscience had already transferred to another class and there seemed to be nothing that could be done. Reggie used a second level drain. From one of the monsters in Ueno Park's dungeon, a rare loot of level 2 outflow fell to him. It was originally a scroll with a spell used to lower the level of monsters, but it can also be used to lower the stats of low-level adventurers, since the higher the level, the higher the magic resistance. The markings of levels and professions disappeared over the heads of the class students. Reggie thought that if they reformed and became decent people, he would return their adventurer tags. He looked at the teacher's sheet and was surprised that there were officially 5 people excused to the dungeon today. As he left, the boy said that in a minute the effects of the hypnosis would wear off and everyone would forget this conversation and never remember it. People in robes and masks were walking through the underground of Ueno Park. A guy said that the old man seemed to be going this way. The other said to call it a day. The girl offered to go and find someone else. Suddenly all of them had their adventurer's tags missing. They were puzzled. The girl said there was some heaviness in her body. They screamed as they realized that their level was missing. The boys couldn't believe it. The boy shouted, asking if the adventurer's mark could disappear. The girl shouted that this wasn't the time to ask questions. Another guy shouted that they could be caught by the dungeon slimes. The guy shouted that they had to get away quickly and they ran down the corridor. They were watched by Reggie. He thought it was easy to deal with the E-class, but this story doesn't end with them. While under the effect of transparency, he looked at the already empty corridor and wondered what to do. The hero thought that he only wanted to protect a world where he could watch anime in peace and without too much trouble, that becoming a defender of justice was not something he particularly wanted to. Proto once said it was Reggie's fault. The latter was puzzled. Golem said that in the whole world, only E-class students had lost adventurer tags and the boy might start to be suspected as the only one who hadn't lost a tag. Toth said that couldn't be the case. Then he asked if it could. Proto once said that now he was beginning to worry. The hero asked if it was so that it was better not to touch them. The golem replied that he didn't think so. He said that if they turned a blind eye to it, the scale of the problem would only increase and the reputation of the adventurers would fall. But it seems to him that it would have been easier to just get rid of them and in another world they would have had the death penalty waiting for them long ago. Reggie remained silent. Proto once said that if he wanted to arrange something like that again, he should try to avert suspicion from himself. The boy pondered. He said that he understood him and plans were changing, that he would go to the dungeon and get there by teleport, and if he found more adventurous bandits, he would take away their tags. The golem agreed. The hero asked if he agreed that the tree was easiest to hide in the forest. Proto once said that the tree snatcher said that. He wished the boy good luck and said he would continue making videos for the channel. After going around all the dungeons in the country, Reggie took away the tags of about 100 bandits and it was a pain in the arse. Under invisibility, he used a level 2 outflow. In the video, he said that if someone commits a crime inside a dungeon, his adventurer's tag can be lost, and with the tag, all the characteristics are lost, so you can't abuse your powers, because looting is illegal. The hero was angry that Proto 1 was using failed takes again. The one said that he had a sense of taste. The boy said that now he was curious to see if it would help reduce looting. Golem replied that the CPIP has a huge influence and he is sure that it will be listened to. He asked Reggie what was the matter. He replied that he realized what they were doing was wrong, but he still felt guilty for taking away their tags. He said that he was also trying to cover up his crimes with that video. Proto 1 looked at him. He said that if he felt guilty, he could just not put the video on the channel and give everyone their tags back. Toth replied that if he did that, it was a threat to the world. Golem said that the boy could stop caring about the world. He said he would want the one to be happy, that he didn't have to do anything he didn't want to do. Reggie was surprised. He said he would be out for a while and asked to upload the video for now. Proto 1 replied that he understood and wished him luck. The boy mentally thanked the golem and thought he would try again to give it his best. He went to the CEO's office and apologized to him for the distraction. Iwaki said he would always have time for the boy and thanked him for the healing moss. He asked what the man wanted to talk about. The hero said that it was already broadcast on the news and he wanted to talk about adventurers who do looting instead of level pumping. The director said that if they didn't find a solution to this problem as soon as possible, it could turn into a disaster for them, that the decline in the adventurer's reputation would only be the beginning. He said that only high-level adventurers could deal with this problem, but they had enough to do on other floors, so a long-term security system was needed. Iwaki asked Furui if he could make cameras that worked inside the dungeon. The man replied that it was not an option and such a thing would require very rare materials. He said he was thinking of suggesting that a patrol of high-level adventurers be set up on the ground floors and asked how to get them to cooperate. The director replied that he was clear. He said that he could get the Prime Minister involved to arrange for recruitment of volunteers, and as an incentive, extra points could be offered at the material outlets. Reggie thanked him for his help and said that he couldn't have organized such a thing alone. Iwaki said that he could help them speed up the volunteer recruitment process if he released a video about it after the patrols were officially announced. The boy thought that if things went right, other countries would follow suit and it would make his life a lot easier. The principal said that the entire E-class had suddenly lost their tags and asked if it was Furuya's handiwork. Thoth tensed and answered in the negative. Iwaki smiled nervously and said he thought karma had caught up with them. He said he was glad the boy had asked him for help anyway, that he and he were experts in different fields, so they could always help each other with advice. Thoth, embarrassed, replied that he understood and thanked him for his time. He thought about the fact that Mr. Iwaki could be relied on and it was amazing. At the underground of Ueno Park, Tara was at the state shop with the guys. She said she was still walking around in it and asked what the problem was. The boss said that's not the way to do it. Kunami said she was just lucky. The girl showed the jumper and said she would buy it then. She realized that these clothes were expensive and she didn't have 50,000 yen with her. Kunami quietly asked the boss why he asked her to enter their patty. The man replied that it was dangerous for a girl to walk alone in the dungeon in their time. The guy replied that was no excuse. Tara said that she had changed her clothes. Embarrassed, she appeared in front of them in her new clothes and suggested that it was already faster to go inside. Looking at her, Kunami blushed. The boss said it suited the girl very well and asked the guy if he was right. He said yes. The girl said it was great and that meant it was time to start slime hunting. The boss said that he and Kunami would tag the monster on themselves and she would hit it from behind. Tara agreed. They began their attack. After defeating the monster, Kunami said that they were done for the day. The boss said that they both did a good job. The girl said in surprise that it was so late. The three of them were walking down the corridor. The guy apologized to the girl for deciding to walk past that time. She said that she didn't blame him and he could take it easy thinking about the fact that she had dumped Sarah herself. They were walking through the city at night. The boss asked Tara why she decided to go down to the dungeon. She replied that they say you can earn much more in the dungeon than in the office. Kunami said that was true, but it wasn't an easy business, that unlike adventurers, they didn't level up and their characteristics didn't increase, so they were always taking risks, and it would only get harder as they got older, so the girl needed to start appreciating her life soon. Ta was angry. She asked him to shut up and said he was too young to lecture her, calling him uncle. The one said angrily that he was not her uncle. Tara asked if it was true that adventurers were still the lucky ones and if guys who took advantage of their position made them angry. The boss replied that there was such a thing. The girl said that if there is a god, she hopes that one will take away their marks. She said that God is very unfair that they work hard in this dungeon. The boss agreed. Tara said that here Jiji Baba has a tag but he will not go into the dungeon. Kunami agreed. The girl said that since he didn't need the tag, he could give it to her and asked what was the problem. The boss replied that there was logic in it. The girl said that she really wanted the tag and asked if it could fall on her from the sky. Kunami thought about her talking a lot. The boss laughed and said he could understand her. Suddenly someone told them to wait for a while. They turned round and saw an old woman. The woman asked if they wanted the adventurer's mark. Tara asked if the one was lost. Kunami surmised that it was a vagrant. The boss added that maybe it was a fortune teller. The old woman said she would not repeat herself and asked to listen carefully. She said about the adventurer's mark. She asked if they wanted it or not, what their answer was. The guy wondered what kind of granny. The boss said that with the adventurer's mark they could hunt more than just slimes. Tara said she wanted to. Kunami said he was more in favor than against it. The old woman giggled. She said it would cost 10,000 yen and asked if they agreed. The boy was surprised that it was so cheap. Tara said it was suspicious and the boss said it was doubtful. Grandma was puzzled. A few days earlier, at Adventurer High School, Sanzine had asked Honfa if she had seen the video on the Dungeon Exploration channel. The latter replied that she had watched all of his videos from to and fro, so asked which one she was specifically talking about. The girl replied that she was referring to the video about the adventurer's tag going missing and asked how they should proceed if such a thing happened to them. You said that they say tags only go missing from those who attack the weak, so Ayano definitely has nothing to worry about. The latter embarrassedly replied that she hoped it was true. Honfa said that she wondered what happens to the disappearing marks, whether they just dissolve and that's it. Sanzine was surprised and said she didn't even know. The girl replied that if a tag disappeared from one, it might well reappear from someone else. Currently, on the street near the underground of Ueno Park, the three were standing in front of an old woman. The woman asked if that was too rude, adding that they had told her straight to her face that she was suspicious. She said she saw what diligent fellows they were, so she decided to sell it to them. Tara said that they didn't mean to be rude, but an adventurer's tag for 100,000 yen sounds very suspicious. The boss agreed. Grandma was surprised. She said she knew she should have offered a higher price. Kunimi wondered what her cloak was made of. He said the tag for 100,000 yen sounded like a divorce. The old lady suggested making the price for the tag 100 million yen, adding that even that much wouldn't be enough for it. The guy thought that understandably, the tag would be worth much more. Tara said that it was a lot. The boss said that even if he wanted to take the risk, he just didn't have that much money. Grandma asked if they now understood why she was only asking for 100,000 yen. She said that despite her appearance, she was still a messenger of a god and her purpose was to bestow adventurer's marks on those who truly deserved them. Kunimi thought, becoming even more suspicious. Tara was surprised at her words about a god. The boss asked why not give out the tags for free then. The old woman said that was impossible. She asked how people would prove their resolve if they did not have to sacrifice anything for a tag. She said that the full significance of her gift would be devalued and then people would not take it seriously. Kunimi thought that it could be seen that the one took the adventurer's tags and who would get them very seriously, but it didn't make her any less suspicious. Grandma said that she was giving them 5 seconds to think about it and that they needed to make a decision. She held up one finger and counted. Kunimi told the boss that this was an obvious divorce, that he had never heard of adventurer's marks being bought like some kind of commodity. Tara asked if he thought so. Boss said yes. He said that, to be honest, it all seemed suspicious to him too, but if someone had told him 2 years ago that dungeons with resources would appear all over the world, he wouldn't have believed that nothing was impossible in the world. The old woman counted to 2. The boss asked the girl what she thought. She replied that if it turned out to be a divorce, she would boil with anger. She said that she thought it would be wise not to buy it, but if it turned out that this granny was not lying to them, she would be even angrier and regret not buying it. That one counted to 3. The boss said he couldn't make decisions in such a hurry. Kunimi said it was a scam and suggested that she just leave and forget. He said that the prices of slimes keep falling so they can't throw around situations like this. The boss agreed. Grandma counted to 4. Everyone was in suspense. She almost counted to 5. Suddenly, the boss shouted that he was buying what he was willing to buy. He apologized to Kunimi and said he didn't think Granny was cheating them. He said he would go to the shop to withdraw money and asked him to wait for him here. Kunimi said he would go with him. Tara said she would then look after Nana. The Ta asked what else that meant and started lamenting about 3D girls. Tara interjected. There was a tense silence between them. The old woman asked if the girl was going to buy a tag. The one replied that she wouldn't. She said that she had bought new equipment today and it had taken all her savings, and even if she wanted to, she simply wouldn't have the money for it. The grandmother replied that she was clear and sorry, after which she laughed. The girl said that she had been unlucky since birth, she had recently been mugged, and even earlier she had fallen for a fake video that had caused her friend to die right in front of her. She asked to listen to. Tara asked why God allows such unlucky people to be born if he really exists. The grandmother was surprised at the question. She said she was a messenger of the god of the dungeons and asked how he would know what was going on. The girl was surprised. She said it was clear to her and apologized for the question and asked her to forget about it. The old woman assumed that she was asking about herself. The old woman was a cross-dressing Rigi. He thought that Tara had a hard history, that this wasn't how he had imagined it. He didn't understand why it came out like this. The boy thought about how he and she were alike in terms of bad luck. He had been taken to another world and forced to fight a demon king that he couldn't even remember how many times he had been on the brink of death. He reflected on the fact that just when he thought it was over, his parents were immediately killed, and even now having to do it all through force. The old woman told the girl not to worry and that if she continued to persevere, something good was bound to happen. Tara asked if she was all right. The guys came in. The boss apologized for taking so long. He held out an envelope and said it was 300,000 yen for 3. The girl's eyes shone. She asked how to understand it. Kunimi said that she had no money and she and her boss had consulted and decided to withdraw the patty's savings set aside for a rainy day. Tara said in surprise that it was their savings and she had just joined their patty today. The guy embarrassedly said that if you're going to be divorced, you should divorce the whole place. The boss added that it could be said that the whole patty had been cheated. The girl was embarrassed. She asked what was the matter with them and told them to do as they pleased. Tara blushed and tears came to her eyes. The boys looked at her with a smile. Rigi thought, here comes something good. He said that the envelope contained 300,000 yen for 3 people and that was correct. The old woman raised her hand and used the blessing of the goddess. The members of the patty lit up. Everyone was surprised. Kunimi shouted that he had a mark on his hand and was a level 1 warrior. The boss shouted that he was a monk. Tara said she was a mage and she couldn't even believe it. Kunimi thought it might be a trick. He raised his hand and asked his boss if he could see anything, thinking that in theory only he could see the level. The latter replied that he could not see anything. The guy thought that it wasn't an inscription or a sticker, so it must be true. He decided that there was still more to be tested. The girl said she knew the spell and asked if it would work to create fire. A flame appeared in her hand. Hunami realized it was true. The boss stopped her and said that they would only use their skills inside the dungeon. The old woman said that she would give them some advice, that they should cherish their marks since they got them with such hard work, and if they didn't value them, the marks would be lost. She said there was something else this meeting must not be known about. Reggie used the teleport. Everyone was very surprised that Grandma had disappeared. Tara asked if that one was really a messenger of a god. Hunami thought that she was too plain looking for a messenger. The boy said he was home. Proto 1 greeted him. The hero said that he had only been able to sell somewhere around 50 tags and put the proceeds in his account. The golem replied that he had done a good job. Reggie asked that the money be transferred to the Adventurer Support Fund as an anonymous donation. Proto 1 said he would listen and he would transfer the donation to Wacky Industries in installments so as not to attract too much attention. The boy hesitated. Golem said that it seemed to be the first time he had heard of the Goddess Blessing spell. The hero agreed and said that he had created it himself based on a second-level outflow. Proto 1 replied that he was immediately reminded of Lunamaria, the goddess of the other world, and it was nostalgic for him. Reggie said that her name is itself a spell, and only the pure of heart can activate such a thing like it, and he is pure. He shouted that he forgot to record his favorite anime. Golem replied that here was the hero already and switched. Reggie was at the Adventurers High School warehouse. C. Tanaka said that a total of 100,000 bags of healing moss came out and asked if the boy would be okay with paying by transfer. He agreed. The assassin asked if something was wrong. The hero replied that he was wondering what had become of the E-Class guys, and he had been very busy lately, so he had taken a break. Tanaka replied that his curiosity was understandable, they were his classmates after all. He said that they had all suddenly lost their adventurer's marks. Reggie asked if it was true that the adventurer's mark was the main criterion for admission to this school and if they were now going to be expelled. Assassin answered in the negative. He said that he had talked to the general manager about it and that it wasn't their fault that the tag had disappeared, so they wouldn't face expulsion. The boy was surprised. Tanaka said that of course they would have to redo the training program for them, and from now on they would train as normal seekers without adventurers tags. He said that when they informed the students that they would now be doing slime hunting on the ground floor of the UNO Park dungeon, they all turned very pale for some reason. That immediately afterwards the entire class decided to voluntarily leave the school and even their class teacher resigned. Reggie thought that the entire E-Class had engaged in robberies on the ground floor, and maybe they were afraid to meet their victims. Tanaka said that the transfer was done and the CEO asked him to tell him that he was very grateful. The boy thought it was good that he was able to clear up the story. He said that the money had arrived and asked him to say hello to Iwaki. Tanaka said there was something else. He said that Furuya was being transferred to a special class, and as soon as he returned to class, the first thing he should do was to look in the principal's office and there he would be given a key card. The hero was pleasantly surprised. Assassin apologized for it taking so long. He said that Reggie was the first to be moved to a special class and he congratulated him. The one, embarrassed, said that it was expected. Tanaka thought that Furuya was a hero who had returned from another world, and yet he still rejoiced at such small things. The boy said he was home. The golem greeted him. The hero said joyfully that he had been moved to a special class, and yet he was so reluctant to stand out. Proto 1 replied that he had it written all over his face. He said that he congratulated the master and was glad that he had finally been recognized. The boy thanked him. He thought it was good money today. Suddenly his phone vibrated. Reggie was annoyed to hear that it was Kiko calling. Proto 1 called him a softie. The hero told the man not to give a smiley face. He answered the call and said he was listening. The girl turned to him. In a frightened voice she said that her mom had suddenly fainted. She asked what she should do, assuming she should call an ambulance. The boy was very surprised. He told her to calm down, that everything would be alright, that he would be there soon and hung up. Reggie teleported to the doorstep, quickly put on his shoes, then used transparency and teleport. At Kiko's house, a girl was crying tearfully about her mum. The boy asked if Auntie was in the bedroom. The girl answered in the affirmative. He quickly went to the bedroom. On the floor lay the auntie unconscious. Reggie assumed it was a cardiac arrest. He used the skill of hearing. The girl said she gave her a potion, but it didn't work. The hero thought that it wouldn't work either. He said they would use a high-level potion. He brought it to his aunt's lips, thinking about the fact that it was actually an elixir. The woman mumbled something. Kiko shouted joyfully to her mum. The boy said she would be fine and asked what happened here. The girl wondered. She said that she was tired of her mum's lectures, that she had just asked her to be quiet and she had suddenly fallen. Reggie asked what her level was. Kiko was surprised and said level 11. The hero said that she yelled at her mum and didn't hold back her bloodlust aura and asked if that was true. He said that if a level 11 person directed such an aura at a mere human, he could easily kill him. The girl was surprised. Rigi said that those who can't control themselves would be removed from the adventurers' lists, that she should practice self-control. He asked if it was true that she didn't want to accidentally kill anyone. Kiko shouted that she didn't have any bloodlust. The hero replied that there was no need for childish excuses, that everything was already obvious. She shouted for him not to judge her, that she had done nothing, that she was not a child and at the very least was past the age of liking anime. The boy looked at her with disdain. He didn't understand what it was. Rigi realized that for the first time, he absolutely didn't care what would happen to Kiko. The girl was shouting something loudly at him, but he didn't even try to make out the words. The hero thought that she was saying something, but he didn't care that he felt bloodlust. As he was leaving, Kiko shouted asking if he was listening to her. The boy thought that this was no longer the Kiko he knew. He said he wasn't helping her, but his aunt. He apologized and said he didn't want anything more to do with her. Rigi was walking down the street. He couldn't believe that Kiko had become so repulsive, and yet somewhere in the back of his mind he believed that she hadn't. The hero thought he was starting to like 2D more and more. He decided that he needed to fix this and as soon as possible. In the underground of Ueno Park on the 200th floor, a boy sat on a rock. He was using a hidden area and minotaurs were walking past him. Rigi thought about how it was comforting that these guys would be more sympathetic than Kiko. He thought that he had always kept his bloodlust in check, but he didn't know what would happen if he let it out. Would the monsters be scared? The hero decisively used his bloodlust and it overtook the minotaurs. The result of the boy was shocked. All the monsters were lying on the floor. He didn't realize what had happened, whether everyone had died. He used the locator skill. Using the locator skill, Rigi realized that they had all gone down. He thought that a level 1503 level bloodlust was frightening. He decided that right now, it wasn't Kiko that he needed to worry about, but how not to let that bloodlust out. During the start of school, the boy came to the principal's office. He wished good morning to the assassin Tanaka. The latter apologized and said that due to urgent business he wouldn't be able to see him off. The hero was puzzled. Tanaka gave him the key card and asked him not to lose it. Rigi looked at it with a smile and thought it was cool. The assassin told him to ask his classmates how to use it. He said goodbye. The hero thought Principal Assassin Tanaka is all business. Humming a tune, he reached the special door. Rigi didn't realize what it was. He assumed it was a magical security door and pondered how it should be used. The boy saw the inscription and realized that the card should be attached here. So he did, but the door did not open. The hero did not understand why it would not open and assumed that the door was broken. The girl asked if the door wouldn't open. She asked to see his map so she could take a look. It was you. Rigi recognized her. The girl said his card wasn't registered yet. She asked if he was an E-class Furuya. The one answered in the affirmative. He said that Principal Assassin Tanaka said to ask the special class students for help. Hanfa was shocked. The hero did not understand her reaction. The girl told him to ignore it and that she would explain everything to him. She said to take the card and pour her mana into it to register it behind her, that they use a magic trace instead of a fingerprint. Rigi was surprised. He thought that was cool. After doing it properly, he attached the card and the door opened. The boy thanked you. The woman replied that she was welcome. She said she had taken his coat to the dry cleaners and would return the coat to him a little later. The hero replied that it wasn't worth it, that he could do more so she could keep it. The girl replied that she knew she would. The boy realized that he had punctured himself. You, with tears in her eyes, said that they would have all died if he hadn't come to their rescue then, that he was their savior. Rigi, looking at her, thought she was cute. She bowed and said that she really was very grateful to him. The hero blushed heavily from embarrassment. He asked what she meant, adding that she had mistaken him for someone else. He said that he had never even seen dragons in his life. Hanfa told him not to be afraid she wouldn't tell anyone, but Ayano and Isabella might recognize him by his voice. The boy wondered if she was definitely not a hidden anime heroine. He remembered that because he was in a hurry then he had completely forgotten to hide his voice. Rigi thought it was bad, but after Kiko, any girl seems very nice. They walked into the classroom. Ken turned to Furuya. He said that he had just transferred from E-class and he was already going out with a girl, that he was lucky. The hero didn't realize who it was. The guy said his name was Ken Takeishi. His level was 40 and he was ranked 7th in the world rankings. Rigi thought the guy was too close. Ken said that everyone in that class got into the world ranking and asked if Furuya now realized where he got to. The latter remembered that this guy was treating the wounded at the entrance during the sprawl. Ken asked what his level was. The hero replied that he was perpetually first. The guy said he heard that he was on good terms with director Tanaka and asked if he happened to be put in here by Blatt. You told him to wrap it up, adding that it wasn't funny. Ken apologized to her and told her that she shouldn't get involved in this because it was a showdown between men. Rigi said that he got here honestly and not by Blatt. The boy replied that everyone is a talker and offered to prove it with his strength. The boy agreed and asked how to do it. Ken replied that it was easy. He said to direct his bloodlust at him and that would determine what he was capable of. Yu was puzzled. Reggie was shocked, realizing the power of his bloodlust. Ken told Furuya to hurry up, already showing his bloodlust, and asked if he was scared. The boy was puzzled. He said that if you think of it that way, the school had put him in this class. He asked why he would want to prove anything to Ken Takshi. The latter got angry. He asked if the hero was serious. He said that if that man was, then stop being a coward or it might become a habit. Ken suggested that maybe that one already gives a backhand always if he doesn't like something. The boy was starting to get angry. Ken said he had it written all over his face that he'd never been in a dungeon before. It was getting harder and harder for Reggie to hold back. Ken said that he had enough of bothering everyone at school to stay home and watch his stupid anime. The hero looked at him judgmentally. The class looked at them in surprise. The guys saw that creepy atmosphere. Reggie had a phrase about dumb anime flying through his head. He said he agreed, but if Ken dies, don't let him complain later. Toth was surprised at this change of behavior. He replied that the dead don't talk at all. The boy said that Furuya's bloodlust would never kill him and that he could check for himself. The hero agreed and said he would do it carefully. Ken agreed, thinking about how strong the guy was. Reggie concentrated. He thought about what Ken had said when he first entered the classroom. The boy didn't understand why he was lucky. Why would he be happy about going to school with a 3D girl? After all, he had already said that his type was anime heroines. He mentally wished Ken dead. They stood in front of each other. The guy instantly felt bad. He staggered, but then laughed and asked if that was all. One of the girls said she felt bad about something. A boy said he felt bad. The other replied that as far as here. The one said it was dangerous and offered to leave. Yu asked in surprise if that was weak. Reggie said he would keep doing it. He replayed Ken's words about cowardice in his head. He asked himself if he was a coward. The boy wondered if he had defeated the Demon King, that this was when Ken himself defeated his king, then he could swing the rights. The boy's nose was bleeding and he was in bad shape. He said that he recognizes that Furuya is strong, so that's enough. The hero disagreed. He said there would be 2 more times that Ken should try to hold out. He asked if he was a coward. Reggie said as he continued. The guy remained silent. The hero recalled the guy saying that he had it written all over his face that he had never been in a dungeon. He mentally asked what the fellow knew. The boy thought that Ken had been to the dungeon only 1.5 times, and already he thought he was the center of the earth. He asked what about 10 years. Reggie thought about the fact that he had spent 10 years in another world, that he had been exploring dungeons day after day, practically living in them. He thought that even now he had to go to the dungeons, that he was making videos for them, the newcomers, so that they wouldn't die for nothing. Tears came to his eyes. The hero thought about the fact that he wasn't doing this for himself, that it was simply his duty as a former hero. He directed his bloodlust at Ken. The man's eyes rolled back, his nose continued to bleed, and his body shook. Reggie said that the guy's words still made him angry, and so far they were not finished. His tears were flowing. Yu shouted for him to stop. She shouted that enough was enough, that it was okay. The boy remembered again how Ken had called the anime dumb. He repeated his phrase over and over in his head. Hanfa realized that he was furious. She hugged him and told him that it was alright, that he could go on, that he didn't need to prove anything to anyone else. The hero came to his senses. The girl said she thought Ken had already realized how strong Furuya was. The boy looked at Ken. He stood unmoving with a blank expression on his face. Reggie thought this was creepy and he was overdoing it. He started shaking the guy and asking if he was okay, asking him to come to his senses. There was no change in his condition. Ken at this time saw his grandmother with a halo over her head. He asked how she was doing, adding that he was worried. She said that he had always been a very kind child, that he could go back and it was too early for him to be here. Reggie noticed Ken smiling. He laughed and said something about Granny. Yu asked him if he was okay. Ken woke up. He thought it was dangerous. Reggie asked how he was feeling. The man replied that there was no problem. The hero thought there's a bunch of problems. Yu brought a chair over to Ken and suggested that he sit down. The one agreed. The boy told him to sit still, that he would heal him. Ken agreed and apologized. The hero used the cure, everything around Ken glowed. The one was surprised by this ability. He thought about the fact that Reggie healed him in an instant, that this was not the healing spell he knew. He thought that Furuya had almost killed him, that the hero had a terrifying talent. Ken turned to the boy. He apologized and said that he had provoked him on purpose to see what he was capable of. He promised he would never do it again and apologized again. Reggie was embarrassed. He said it was okay, that it was his fault too and he was sorry. The boy thought that Kiko wouldn't have done that. Ken said that Furuya got here because of his ability. He gave a hero's welcome to a special class. They shook hands. Reggie was embarrassed. He was very happy.